victory, giving the Flyers the Prince of Wales Conference title. It was Davy Poulin's goal midway through the second period, while the Flyers were skating 2 men short, that provided Philadelphia with a spark to a 3-0 series clincher and a berth in the Stanley Cup final. Though eliminated, the Nordiques have used last year's postseason success as the impetus to a current 4 straight season opening victories, with the usually offensive-minded Nordiques allowing just 5 goals, the best start in Quebec's NHL history. Meanwhile, the Flyers, after stumbling on opening night against the Devils on home ice 6-5, posted consecutive Patrick Division weekend victories 4-2, first Saturday at Pittsburgh, ensured on an empty net goal by Davy Poulin, and then Sunday at Washington with an empty netter locking it up off the stick of Rick Tocchet. Now, during their regular season's play, the Flyers have only lost once at the Spectrum to the Nordiques and hope to extend that string tonight. Next on Prism. Prism Sports presents Philadelphia Flyers Hockey. The Spectrum, it's the Flyers and the Quebec Nordiques.
Wow, they've just completed both the Canadian and American national anthems, and we're getting ready to start this game between these two rivals. The referee tonight will be Don Koharski. Handling the lines will be Kevin Collins and a rookie, Dan DePuzzo, or Pat DePuzzo, excuse me. Playing in goal for the Quebec Nordiques is Richard Sevigny. In one game this year, he held the opposition to 2 goals. For a victory also in the net for the Flyers, Pelle Lindbergh. In 2 games, he's given up, his goals against average is 4.00 with 1 win, 1 loss. And now with a play-by-play, the doctor, Mike Emmerich.
Thank you, Ed. Good evening, everyone. The line that has 31 shots on goal in the 3 games it's played, Poulin, Propp, and Kerr start for Mike Keenan's Flyers tonight. Crossman and Marsh, the defense. And the Nordiques go with their checking line of Eagles on left wing, Gillis at center, and Cote on the right side, with Price and Muller the defense. And here comes Propp up the right wing, has Poulin breaking in front, and it went right in on goal and was padded away by the right pad of Richard Sevigny. Right back up the ice comes Gillis. From the middle of the ice at the blue line, just let one go that was wide to the left of Pelle Lindbergh, to the right as we look at it, as the Flyers are attacking right to left in this first period. Nordiques regroup at their own line. A pass from Muller chips ahead for Paul Gillis, who has trouble with the checking of Poulin, and then the Nordiques shot it in with a man offside.
Well, scratch for the Quebec club. They have an awful lot of extra players this early in the season. Michel Goulet holding out. Gosselin, just the extra goaltender tonight. And a lot of bodies, except for Will Paymont. Paymont is the player who's injured and hasn't seen any action yet. Flyers without Carson, Hospodar, Patterson. Hospodar, the only injured player in that trio.
Ashton, the left winger, on the line with Peter Stastny at center and Anton Stastny on the right. And the defense consists of Rochefort, as well as Gilbert Delorme, who was with the St. Louis Blues before a trade even up for another defenseman from Quebec, Bruce Bell. Flyers are using Rich Sutter's line with brother Ron at center, and a crunch by Tocchet and Sutter on a pair of Nordiques. Loose puck at the Quebec line is spun back out by Delorme. Just like 2 freight trains, they saw nothing but blue in between and put the sandwich on. Played back toward the Nordiques line. Rochefort just skies one to the Flyer line. Mark Howe with it there. Tapping up the right wing for Tocchet. Brought on by Rich Sutter. Middle of the ice on the right circle for Ron Sutter. Has trouble, though. Then Rich Sutter bumped hard into the boards by Rochefort. Gets up, but appears to be all right. To the near corner of the Nordique zone. 2 players aside go in. Some shoving there as Rich Sutter punched a Nordique to the board and held him for a moment. traffic moved in, but everyone except the two-point men, and so the face-off will remain in the Nordiques end.
I think the strategy here is obvious as both Sutters and Cockett were out there banging people around. We had a good look at that at center ice when the Nordiques are two of them together. All of a sudden, Cockett and Ronnie Sutter just boom, and the two of them hit Stastny and Ashton. Just collided there with a little help from the Flyers, but again, the Flyers very aggressive in the forechecking. Other action around the National Hockey League tonight. The Hartford Whalers are at New Jersey. Detroit is in Minnesota.
The Adams division has played 11 games outside its division in this early season. The Adams division has won 10 and tied 1, and that was the Bruins knotting up with Vancouver. A strong division represented tonight by the Nordiques, the 12th game of this year outside its division. Sees now Richard Sevigny slugging off the stick of Marois in his own zone, moving in to take the Flyers. In the right corner, it is Peter Zezel. Leaned on there by the checking of Shaw. Marois wants to freeze it up, and Don Koharski doesn't want to see it. Tells him to move the puck along. The Flyers are doing that with their skates. Two Nordiques want to freeze, but can't. Dave Brown rolled one out to the near circle, and it's punched toward the corner by Mike Stothers. Puck rolled back along by the Nordiques, but they can't get it by Kumpel. Puck taken by Zezel at the edge of the left circle, but stolen by Mark Kumpel, and he'll move back out for Quebec. Middle of the ice, the red line, drops it to the left wing corner of the Flyers zone. Circling is Doug Crossman, banks off the left defensive boards for Craven, then from Eklund, who just came off the bench at center ice, a pass misfires cross ice for Brown. Eklund just slides one back in, and with that, the Flyers will complete a shift change, bringing out Eriksson on defense to work with Brad Marsh. Nordiques in their own zone. Cote can't pass out as Sinisalo knocked it down, though Dale Hunter retrieved. His pass through at center ice, caromed off the stick of John Anderson, who comes to the bench for a shift change. Back on now comes Eriksson. Tried to flip one along the boards, but it became airborne, and we get a stoppage of play.
Alain Cote, he's been with the Quebec Nordiques the longest of any player, and that dates back to the WHA days. Very strong defensive hockey player. Former draft pick of Montreal Canadiens. He just signed a new contract this summer as well. A lot of players were up for renegotiation, or else their clubs extended their contracts and gave them new ones.
Eklund tests with Gillis. In the Quebec zone, Nordiques recover, but in their own left wing corner, can't clear out as Howe keeps, bounces off the board to the left of the Quebec goal. Out to whip it along his goaltender Richard Sevigny. Wanted it for Eagles, but he took a tumble. Puck kept by the Flyers. Right corner, Sinisalo tries to feed in front, but is held off on the play. Scooting away with it to the right corner as Eklund ran into both Eccles and Moeller. Eklund trying to escape. Moeller sidles up to him and is able to get as far as the near corner, where two aside just continue the battling. Good hard work forechecking by the Flyers. Centering pass by Derek Smith comes all the way to the point. McCrimmon able to keep it, fires, and that tip high off the goal stick of Sevigny. To the right corner, Derek Smith has it poked away by Price, and having to recover at center ice is Brad McCrimmon. On the stick of Sinisalo, loses his balance, but is able to turn it back into the Quebec zone as the Flyers make a shift change, bringing out Poulin, Propp, and Kerr. Nordiques pump it in, and following through on his check was Dave Poulin, riding Eagles high to the boards. Back on come the Flyers, but it's lost by Kerr at the Nordique line. Sent back in by Pat Price. Chasing down is Eriksson. Hung up in the checking of Peter Stastny. Kicks it nicely ahead. Backhand pass in front by Ice, and over to Anton Stastny, and a diving play made by Pelle Lindberg. There's a break in the action with 16:06 to go in the first period. No score.
We talk about going to the net and how important it is. Here's a good example as the Quebec Nordiques were battling for possession at a bad angle. Just keeps coming and coming. Brad Marshall goes down, makes the initial play. And on the other side, the Nordiques just driving for the net were almost able to put that puck by Pelle Lindberg, who had sprawled on the play, but it was just wide of the net on the meshing. Well, go ahead. Special visitor. Gene Hart and his wife Sarah at the game. As you can tell and see, he's coming along just nicely after open heart surgery.
From the face-off, Crossman wraps for Tim Kerr. Nice outlet pass. Ron Sutter, left wing to Propp. Propp back for Sutter, and then he's checked. Followed through by Kerr, but he couldn't get by the defense work of Gilbert Delorme, who cleared it all the way down the ice for the icing touch-up by Crossman. 15:48 left in the first. We're scoreless.
Well, we talked about Alain Cote signing a new contract this summer. Doug Crossman just signed a multi-year pact with General Manager Bobby Clark just within the last few days. Crossman, one of the 4 real solid defenders back there for Coach Mike Keenan, and came on, even though he didn't play a lot in the middle of last season, came on to play very well near the end in the playoffs. Ronnie Sutter just missed that check, and I think in doing so, he was able to look up and see Rochefort coming in. He was able to brace himself, or else he might have taken a much worse hit.
That's why you got to be careful when you're picking up that pass. You don't see what's coming the other way.
That's when that defenseman sure hopes that that off winger is being covered.
Nordiques direct back out to center ice. Marsh gathers middle of the ice at his own line. On the left wing turning side to Brian Propp. Up ahead to Crossman. Moved to the right side of the Nordique line. Took a swat from Price as he headed in, and a stoppage on a flyer offside.
You know, this is something that Quebec's doing here tonight that they did in the semifinal series last year. They're stringing 4 guys right across the blue line, and it's making it very difficult for the Flyers to move that puck over the blue line. They might have to revert to dumping it in and chasing it. But even then, with 4 men across the line, and sometimes 5, those players will be holding up those wingers, so it makes it fairly easy for those defensemen to get back there, get a hold of the puck, make the turn, and make the good play coming out.
Both teams tonight using 8 of their own draft choices in a lineup of 20. Flyers have 6 first-round picks in their roster tonight, and the Nordiques have 7. Behind their own goal is where the Nordiques take this one in the person of Randy Moeller. Looks for Jimmy Mann on the near circle, and he just seemed to be bothered completely by the Flyer forechecking, but they're able to outlet now. Ashton rolls in the right wing corner for Jimmy Mann, but it skids behind. Skating it down is Ron Sutter. Bumps it back along under the stick of Rich Sutter, and it'll be gathered in back at the Nordique line by Peter Stastny, who has trouble with the Flyer checking, and then he and Rich Sutter get the sticks up.
You know, it's an interesting thing, Mike. Peter Stastny was out on a line with Ashton and Anton Stastny the first time, and that's when they took a run at him, and they sandwiched him in center ice. His very next shift, Michel Bergeron has Jimmy Mann out there to try and even things up as far as the physical end of it is.
Also, Mann, when he did give Sutter a shot, the linesman right there is kind of after the fact, but there's no doubt about it that the Bergeron is not going to stand for intimidation.
Break in the action, 15:04 left in a scoreless first period.
You know, it has to be tough, though, for Jimmy Mann, if you talk about it. You know, he's been in the league for about, this is his 7th year, but he's only put out there at certain times. Now we have Brown and Mann. Brown went right after Jimmy Mann before they even stopped.
Boy, you weren't kidding. Brown didn't hesitate at all. He knew what he was out there for and just went right after him. Put him down to the ice. The linesmen have pulled the 2 of them apart. But there was a lot of action for a few seconds.
Well, he did come right out. They had a line change. Brown went right over there, went after Jimmy Mann. And, you know, no matter how much you try and downplay previous games, it still sticks in the back of players' minds.
You better believe that.
And trying to get a good shot, but Mann will be going to the penalty box. Dave Brown's already in there. They'll pick up Majors for fighting, I would think, but I'm sure that Brown will probably pick up an additional 2-minute minor for roughing for being the instigator.
Number 10, Jimmy Mann. And Flyers penalty number 21, Dave Brown, each 5 minutes for fighting.
That's all they're going to call. Now, if this is Ron Fournier, we take up 2 and 5.
Dave Brown, Flyers, each 5
I got a feeling that Mike Keenan is going to show the Nordiques as well, and they're not going to take anything from the enforcers of the Nordiques. In this case, Mann, as Brown went out for the line change and went right after him just prior to the face-off. Bergeron standing up atop the bench, looking over the shoulders of his players at the referee, Puharski.
John Anderson, newcomer from the Toronto Maple Leafs. He'll be our guest in the first intermission.
Wonder if he has any hamburger franchises in Quebec City yet. What was it, 7 in Toronto when he left town?
Something like
The
that.
Hamburger King, he's known as. Also quite a goal scorer. On now comes Sinisalo at the Nordique line. Ran into Marois. Tried to brush it loose towards Zezel in the right corner. He and Marois go in, and Marois can't clear. Sinisalo ready to go. Rebound score by Murray Craven, 1-0.
5:14 is the time. There's good forechecking on the part of the Flyers. Zezel and Sinisalo, the rebound. The defensemen for Nordiques were caught way over to the left part of the net, leaving it well unprotected, and Craven was all alone. All they had to do was backhand that puck into that open net, and Craven picks up his second goal of the season. Zezel and Sinisalo will pick up assists. Flyers up 1-0.
Flyers goal.
Here's Kumpel moving right circle of the Flyers zone. Carried to the corner, though, and hung up with a checking of Zezel. Two aside go in, and the third one, Dale Hunter just came in and freight trained Zezel, and Zezel comes back to hammer into Hunter. Play continues, though, as Hunter tries to wedge Mark Howe out from behind the Flyer goal. They clear it along, and sticks are up high as checks are being thrown by players from both sides. Flyers clear it all the way back down. Slogging back after this on defense is Shaw. Got there first in time for the touch-up. And Edward, you called the shot at the top of the telecast.
I'll tell you, we expected this to be a physical game, Michael, and they have not disappointed us. Both teams have been out there banging around. Craven put the Flyers ahead 1-0. The Flyers are just banging people around. And all of a sudden, Hunter's going to come in here a little bit late. And all of a sudden, boom, he really puts a hit on Zezel, gets through there with the elbow. And Zezel retaliated on that check.
Mike Eagles is the winger on the line for Quebec on the left side. This is their checking unit, the one that has taken so much pride in keeping enemies off the scoreboard. And because it is a Kerr line out, they're doing their best right now. The Kerr was just wrapped up and carried off by Gillis. It's worked to Crossman at his own line out of Brad Marsh, flips it back out. It skitters by Gillis, but is handled by Randy Moeller. Brother of the Sabres, Mike, gives it right up to Poulin at the left circle. Slot to Prop, and a quick shot is blocked away to the left corner by the waffle board of Sevigny. In the corner to a side battle. Forehand shot came right in on Sevigny. Stoppage of play as he made the save. The Nordiques will be penalized. There's a break in the action with 6.5 minutes gone in the first period. The Flyers are leading 1-0.
Moeller had a bear hug on Timmy Kerr in the corner. He just had a hold of him. He was wrestling back and forth. Has put his hand up in the air as if to say who's holding who here, but that's not the way Koharski saw it. He made the call as the two were wrapped up. Timmy Kerr and Randy Moeller. Moeller gets a 2-minute call for holding. Time of that penalty is 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Just prior to that, Prop got off a real good shot on goal. The Flyers will have their first power play opportunity with Moeller for holding. Foul holding on Randy Moeller. 6:30 the time. Flyers their first power play opportunity. They stand fourth in the league at this point.
Zezel takes the draw. The puck popped back to Crossman. Crossman looking for Zezel and finds him. Edge of the left circle. Two men toward the front. Sinisalo has drifted off now, hoping for this one and getting it left corner. Back to the right point. Drive deflected off Sevigny, and there'll be a penalty coming up. And it'll be a delayed call against Philadelphia. Over to tap this one is Cote, and when the Flyers touch up, it'll be even up.
Elka Sinisalo is going to get a hooking minor as he pulled down the Quebec Nordique, and I believe it was Mario Marois as he was trying to move on that loose puck that went over to the right wing boards. And that's exactly what it's going to be. Sinisalo for hooking. It'll come in 6 minutes and 54 seconds. Just prior to that, that's when the shot was deflected by Tim Kerr just wide of Richard Sevigny. Then the penalty happened, as you see there, with Sinisalo pulling Mario Marois down.
Coaches just hate those offensive zone penalties, especially when they wipe out a power play. Both teams will go a man short. The 4 for the Flyers. McCrimmon, who has it right now, between the circles of his own zone. Then to Howe and across to Poulin. Also out is Brian Prop. Poulin creeps in right side, feeds to Howe. Left circle, wrist shot, pad stop with the right pad of Sevigny. Scooped up by Delorme, has trouble with the checking of Prop, but bounces it off the left defensive boards to Ashton, and Ashton leads the march out now with Peter Stastny. Back along to Ashton at the right line of the Flyers zone, and then Howe lost to McCrimmon, who banks it back off. It's taken by Brian Prop halfway up the right defensive boards, hands back to McCrimmon, takes a return pass at center ice and moves on Rochefort. At the line, pass comes across to Poulin. double teamed by a couple of Nordiques, and it's wanded ahead by Rochefort. Up the left wing, Peter Stastny moves to the left circle, can't get it through the checking of Brad McCrimmon, and McCrimmon wraps it back around, though the Nordiques can keep it in the person of Delorme. Right corner, menaced by the checking of Prop. Delorme rolls it behind to the far corner where McCrimmon has it. Little toss over to Poulin, who helps it back for Howe, and then a crisp pass on out to Prop. In 55 seconds, the Flyers penalty will be up, but that preceded by 20 seconds with the expiration of one from the Nordiques. So the Nordiques, in 25 seconds from now, will get their first power play of the game. Puck played in the Nordique zone, and Tim Kerr kicks it along. It comes back to the right point. Big shot! Pad stop on the play by Sevigny. That came sizzling in by Eriksson, and another one in front. And Sevigny able to stop that one, thrown by Crossman.
I'm not so sure that Sevigny even saw that shot. The shot was taken off to an angle and appeared to hit him. I'm not so sure that he could actually see it coming. As Crossman took the shot, Timmy Kerr was there jabbing at it, trying to put it down. Rochefort give the Flyers a little shot from behind, but again, the shot was taken off from a bad angle. Timmy Kerr was jabbed down to the ice as the save was made, and Rochefort took the Flyers out of the play in front of the net. That's what a defenseman has to do. Move him out, let the goaltender see the puck, let him make the play, and he'll cover up the rebound. And that time, Rochefort moved 2 Flyers out.
10 seconds from now, it'll be a Quebec power play that'll last 24 seconds. Zezel and Hunter test for the face-off, and the Nordiques can walk out with it. Shaw's pass sails by John Anderson, and Lindbergh watching as Anderson and Eriksson go in. Anderson's long reach prevailed, but it's Craven for the Flyers. Back up now to Zezel. Out of the penalty box, the Nordiques, Randy Moeller. Puck gotten by Zezel. Plays off the left corner boards of the Nordique zone, and it's swung back around by Sevigny to the turning stick of John Anderson. Anderson hung up, down when a Flyer. Interference will be the call on Anderson.
I think it's Pat Price that's going to pick up that penalty, Mike. As Price went around, or pardon me, Flyer went around the outside of Price. Price just got interfered and pulled him down to the ice. And as a result, he's going to pick up a 2-minute minor, so the Flyers will have their second power play opportunity. And Price will pick up a 2-minute minor for interference, so the Flyers will have their second power play opportunity. The time of that penalty is 8 minutes and 45 seconds into the first period. Flyers lead the Nordiques 1-0.
Power play to begin for the Flyers in 9 seconds. They bring on Kerr to work up front with Zezel. In back, it'll be Crossman and Eriksson. Paul Gillis to take the face-off in the circle to the right of his goaltender, Richard Sevigny. And the Nordiques can move out with it from the face-off. On comes Alain Cote. 4 hands off the stick of Crossman at the blue line, and it just one hop to the far corner of the Flyer zone where Crossman gathers in. His penalty time has expired on the minor penalty assessed to Sinisalo. So the Flyers have 1 minute and 40 seconds of a power play with 10:55 to go in the first period and a 1-0 lead. They work at the line of the Nordiques. It went through Kerr, but caught Ilkka Sinisalo in for an offside call.
Tim Kerr really had a couple of good opportunities with deflections. Sevigny beat him the last time when he didn't even see the shot, but the other time he deflected it wide. And I think the big fellow, should he stay healthy, is going to have another outstanding year.
The other night in Washington, the Caps held him to no shots, but Prop got 6 and Poulin got 3. The Gretzky syndrome. You stay on one and the wingers get all the chances. And in Kerr's case, of course, the right wing, the center and left wing get the shots. Here is Zezel, right wing corner of the Nordique zone. In front, Kerr, quick shot, blocked by the defense. Rebound, Sinisalo couldn't fidget it through. And sprawling and holding is Sevigny.
Cote made a good play that time. The puck was loose. He had nowhere to go with it. He didn't know where the Flyers were. In behind him as the Flyers were really milling around that net. The first shot was, the attempt was taken by Sinisalo. The puck is going to be loose. It's in behind, and Cote just jams the puck underneath the sprawling goaltender. And the goaltender covers up that loose puck. That's a good play when you don't know where to go with it. And also the Flyers' offensive attackers, you're not sure where they are. You just put it underneath your goaltender and let him freeze it.
Sevigny making his 5th appearance against the Flyers. He's 2-1-1, but all 4 previous games were as a Canadian. Crossman, left circle drive, hung up in the catching glove of Sevigny.
He's going down a lot before the shot's taken, but he's spreading out quite well, and he's covering most of the low areas of the net. Good shot by Crossman. Taking it nice and low. It was deflected, but now Severnier's right there, and then the puck hits him in the glove. He's well out challenging the shooter, and there's not much you can do in that situation when you can't see the puck. You just have to try and make yourself as big as possible and cover as much of the net.
Zezel and Gillis test again. It hops back to Crossman. Middle of the ice, drive by Poulin, knocked down in front. Rebound is poked loose, and getting it back out now for the Nordiques, it is Paul Gillis. Moving to Crossman at the Flyer line, sails one wide to the right, and Crossman moves after it. Crossman and Brian Propp are the point men for Philadelphia, and that's the passing combination as Propp outlets, but misses Rochefort of Quebec, and all the way down the ice. Back to get this one and touch it up for an icing is Randy Moeller. 10:05 to go first period. It's the Flyers 1 and the Nordiques nothing.
You know, that's one thing the Flyers tried to improve with McKinnon in the preseason was their power play. And at this point, their power play is working at a 37.5% efficiency, which is good for fourth in the league. So they have getting some production out of that when they've had the man advantage.
You look at the stats, the shots on goal, and a lot of times they don't indicate much, but the Flyers at this point are out shooting the Nordiques 12-1, and we're looking at 9 minutes and 55 seconds that have already been played.
To the point, drive by Marois, booted right back out by Lindbergh. Marois converges at the left circle. Tries a little pass for Eagles, broken up by Propp. Quickly the Flyers move out. They have 40 seconds to go in their power play, but Kerr can't clear in as it's off Eagles. Skated down by Howe, moves right back in. Right side Nordique zone, takes a chop and goes sprawling into the boards. The chop came from John Anderson. Loose one behind. Marois goes down, loses his stick. At the left corner, Kerr. Back on the left point, McCrimmon. Over to Howe, a shot blocked down and carried back out by Anderson. Anderson leisurely moving toward the Flyer line. McCrimmon dueling with him there, and McCrimmon able to finally take over at the far corner. Brad McCrimmon moves from our right to our left with a pass at center ice to Propp. 3-on-2 at the Nordique line. Propp, little pass through, broken up, gets another try, right in on goal, and it's held by Sevigny.
Boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, Richard Sevigny's had to be awfully quick. Now Brown and Mann have made their way out of the penalty box, and they are yapping at each other. But the linesmen have each of their players and have put them in the bench, or at least pointed them towards the bench. And I don't think we've seen the end of the fireworks between those two players should they happen to be on the ice at the same time. But I was saying that Sevigny has had to be very, very quick. The Flyers are getting a lot of deflections, and that's the advantage when you play that butterfly style. You're able to play deflections a lot better because you're down and you're spreading out, and the puck will hit you more than you'll actually make the save. When you're the stand-up goaltender, you're better on the straight shots and you're not as weak with rebounds. But deflections, I would say that a butterfly-style goaltender has the advantage.
Best butterfly goaltender you ever saw.
Glenn Hall.
You got it.
In the circle to the right of Sevigny, it'll be Ron Sutter testing and winning. Marsh drive from the left point, hit off Rich Sutter, recovers right circle, shot in front, knocked down by Derek Smith, and the puck jammed behind. Ron Sutter tries to center, it's knocked down. Penalty time is up, teams at full strength. Nordiques clustered back in their own end, but Rochefort breaks that with a pass to Brent Ashton, then up through to Price, just fresh from the penalty box, as Lindbergh knocks that one from center ice down with his pad. Flyers try to clear, but can't. Brad Marsh will do the carrying. Up the left wing to Derek Smith. Moves to the left circle, then had trouble with too many Nordiques. And one of the two, it is Rochefort, able to bounce it right back up to Ashton. At center ice, moving on Crossman. Has it wanded away to the far corner by Crossman, but Ashton there. Took a check from Derek Smith, gave it up to Crossman, and Crossman rolls it on the near boards of the Flyers zone. Back up now to Ron Sutter, and Sutter just runs a skyhook that skitters off the glove of Sevigny and is drilled back around by Marois. Then he's followed through on a check by Rich Sutter as a drive from Zezel comes in from 50 feet and is deflected away. Rebound, centering pass in front. Right to the right side of the net, and Craven couldn't connect. So it is Rich Sutter banking it behind for Zezel. Rolls through to Craven right corner, then to Zezel. Looks to center, has no one. Wrapped up on the play by Delorme. Still trying to kick it along, and in comes Sinasato. Knocked from him, though, by Marois. Kept along by Howe. Good pressure by the Flyers as they keep it moving. Zezel stood up hard and then taken down on the check by Delorme. Puck underneath, and the referee wants it moved, and it is. Zezel centers and fanning. It's Craven. Drive by McCrimmon from inside the blue line. Hit someone and get it high into the air. It's knocked loose by Anton Stastny and brought up by the Nordiques. If they hurry, it's a 2-on-1. Ashton on the wing over to Peter Stastny, and it bounced off his stick to the corner. jamming at it from down on the ice is Mark Howe, and Cecil can start it right back up again, just flipping it out of harm's way to center ice. Nordiques clear back in, and McCrimmon will go to get it. Shift change on for Philadelphia as they bring out Eklund. They leave out Craven. Jumping over the boards is big Dave Brown. Eklund plays right in on goaltender Richard Sevigny, who waits then sweeps to the far circle. Got it over to John Anderson, and Anderson's pass glances off Brown, but is carried to center ice by Hunter. On Hunter moves right side flyer line. Watched there by Brad Marsh. Gets it back to the point, but it's brushed away to center ice. And it's Jimmy Mann who's out there on the same ice with Dave Brown. It is Eklund turning at the flyer line. At center ice on the right wing to Brown. Big shot into the catching glove of Sevigny. Leaves it back behind and then decides, no, I won't give it to Muller, and instead I'll throw it away. It's kept by the Flyers, who forehand one that is snagged high in the air by Sevigny from the right circle, and he'll hold for a faceoff. There's a break in the action with 6:40 left in the first period, and the Flyers leading 1-0.
Well, I'll tell you, Jimmy Mann went over to the referee, Don Koharski, to say something about Brown.
Wouldn't you? I know I would. Get that big guy away from me.
1-0 Flyers lead. We have 6:40 remaining in this first period.
Well, you talk about aggressive forechecking and what it can do. The Flyers were in the Nordiques zone for about 2 minutes there, and all it was just good aggressive forecheck where the Flyers are going in there, banging people around and making things happen.
Koharski went over to Brown and told him about if he keeps after it, they'll end up spending time in the penalty box. That's one thing that they'll have to be careful of.
From the face-off, it is rolled back around by Delorme, and then in the right corner, body's just starting to fly as Rochefort behind. Jam back off now for the Nordiques as they just want to get it out of the zone, but can't just yet. Cote working for it, and then it is Delorme clearing back out. Thomas Eriksson, far side of the ice at the red line, starts back around, able to get by Rochefort, but left the puck behind in the possession of Kerr. Now Kerr moves it in, but can't get it through Cote. Rush checked away by the Flyers, and so Propp will bounce one in. Flopper right in front, and Sevigny had trouble, but recovered in time to clear to the far corner. Now back up comes Rochefort. Headman pass at center ice. They lead on the right wing for Kumpel, and Kumpel defended there by Stothers and helping out, moving out to play with Pelle Lindbergh. Propp along the near boards of his own zone. Can't get it free, then does on second effort to Poulin on the right wing to Kerr. Crisp pass over to Brian Propp. Left circle, wrist shot into the catching glove of Sevigny, who sweeps and stands and falls on top of it, and then Kerr on top of him. Stoppage of play. There's a break in the action. 1-0 Flyers with 5:43 to go in the first.
Tim Kerr was knocked down in front there over Richard Sevigny. Sevigny was going to try and play the puck on a quick wrist shot. You see Sevigny down on those knees most of the time. He has a pretty good glove hand. There you can see as he's trying to stop a bit, but the momentum of he and Rochefort together ended up with Kerr on top of the goaltender Sevigny. 5:43 remains in the first period. Flyers up 1-0 on Murray Craven's second goal of the season.
The shot totals 16 for Philadelphia and 3 for Quebec. Rick Tocchet back at the Flyers bench, having just gone to the locker room for some sort of repair. Tocchet has had a 5-minute major for fighting in each of the first 3 Philadelphia games. Jimmy Mann is out for the Nordiques. Brown is not out just now for the Flyers, in case you're interested. Puck gotten by Sevigny from the face-off. Flips it off for Anton Stastny. Bouncing puck, though, kept by the Flyers for a hard drive by Rich Sutter that sizzles wide. Out now at center ice. Mann shoved hard by Brad Marsh. But Mann, with his helmet askew, gets it and shoots it back into the Philadelphia zone. And caught a man offside, and we have a signal. High sticking, and it'll be Brad Marsh who will go to the penalty box.
Well, I'd have to say right now that it's open season here in Philadelphia and Jimmy Mann, because Jimmy Mann was just coming up the boards. Brad Marsh just gets a stick up and just knocks the helmet right off the back of Mann's head, but a lot of times the defenseman will do that to protect himself when the forward's coming towards you. You get your stick out in front to make sure he can't get his stick on top of you, but Brad Marsh in this particular play will pick up a 2-minute minor for high sticking. Time of that penalty will be 14 minutes and 36 seconds of the first period. The Nordiques will have their second power play opportunity of the period.
You know, the only thing that concerns me about this shot differential, 16-3 for Philadelphia, and they only have one goal. You know, if you can weather the storm, a lot of times you see teams come back.
What might Lindbergh be thinking now? He wants a few more shots?
Who? He wants to have another warm-up at the start of the second period.
Flyers clear back down. Nordiques will start it up with Anton Stastny. Pass tipped across by Ashton, but followed up by Peter Stastny. Just glides to the Flyer line. Feeds back off to the turning stick of Anton outside the right circle. Cross ice left side. Big drive. Anderson trapped and held by Lindbergh.
Boy, Anderson had a lot of time to tee that thing up, get it up in front of him, and take that one stride in and really unload the big shot. But Lindbergh was able to see it all the way as the defenseman had opened up that alley, allowing him to see the puck to pass across. Off the time, gets it out in front of him. The head goes down, the stick comes up, and boom. Lindbergh, aggressive out beyond the goal crease, was able to make that save, and more importantly, hang on to that rebound.
Face off one, but between the point men, and so Anderson will go back. He and Delorme will be the shooters for the Nordiques once they get it set, but Brian Propp says no to that by hanging up Anderson in his own zone, though the Nordiques recover. Back on now comes Ashton, right side of the Flyer line to Peter Stastny. Controls to the left point. Anderson, wrist shot, deflected wide by Propp, and then played and held right off the boards by Lindbergh.
Brent Ashton has set up camp, that is, in front of the goaltenders on this power play, and they're having a tough time moving him out of the way. He's a big kid, 6'1", 210 pounds, and very, very strong, and he's very difficult to move out of there. The Flyers have had trouble with this shorthanded situation of moving that man out of there.
You know, we've always said Dornhofer was the best being in front on the power play. Who also was really good at that?
Paul Holmgren was extremely good at it.
Mark Gillies.
Yeah. Boy, also, yeah. That's like trying to move the Twin Towers in New York. You aren't kidding.
What was Eddie like? Did he ever play
on his career?
Well, he had the moving shot from the point.
Oh. Yeah, I was on the point, the power play.
Hunter in the circle to the right of Pelle Lindbergh to draw with Zezel. It's 16 shots Flyers, 4 Nordiques, 1-0 Philadelphia. Minute 10 to go power play. Hard drive by Marois, just kicked away to the far corner by Lindbergh. Scooped up there by J.F. Sauvé. Hooked there once and twice by Zezel. Puck popped back, diving play by Zezel, and cleared by Craven. Splendid short-handed action by the Flyers, as it is Sevigny working near corner of his own zone to Peter Stastny. They try to outlet, but it's off Sauvé and just drilled back along by McCrimmon. Sinisalo able to play this, scampers right in at the right circle. Wrist shot sticked away by Sevigny. Rebound popped in front, but nothing but blue there, so the Nordiques can move back out. On comes Peter Stastny, took a chop from Sinisalo. Right circle to the Flyers zone, just punished to the boards and glass. It is Hunter, top of the right circle, falling, losing, and Craven sees Sinisalo headman toward him, but it went by at center ice and all the way back into the Nordique zone, and Sevigny had to come out and whip it away from the onrushing Craven. It is Marois at center ice along to Anderson, as the Nordiques haven't gotten much in the last minute of this power play. 12 seconds to go in. It is down goes Markow. Play will continue. Flyer fans wanted a penalty. Puck gotten by Sauvé at the right circle. Drops off to Hunter. Has a man in front. Passes back for the slot where Rochefort will recover. Top of the left circle. Feeds in front. Tipped loose, and Hunter got a shot, but it was knocked away by Lindbergh. Marvelous play in goal, and with that, penalty time has expired.
Flyers did a great job that time of killing the penalty, allowing Pelle Lindbergh to see the shots.
It is Eagles dumping toward the Flyer line. Eklund tossing back out on his backhand, and Rochefort follows up, bouncing off the near boards and getting Cote. Right circle drive, blocked away by Lindbergh. Left side turnarounder by Gillis is knocked loose behind. Still they go for it, though. Eagles locked up with Eklund, who kicks it back to the far boards to countryman Thomas Eriksson, who clears. All the way down and going back for the touch-up, and getting there first for the Nordiques, Gilbert Delorme. There's a break in the action with 2:43 to go in the first period of play. The Flyers are leading the Nordiques 1-0.
Why not spend Saturday night with the Flyers? Yes. The Flyers will be taking on the Minnesota North Stars Saturday night at the Spectrum, and you can be there. Good seats are still available and may be purchased at the Spectrum. All Showcase stores and any Ticketron outlet, or call the Flyers at area code 215-465-4500. That's area code 215-465-4500.
Just think, Ed, you can call and place your order with none other than Joe Watson, just by dialing up that number. Face-off will be in the circle to the right of Pelle Lindbergh. Poulin and Derek Smith out for the Flyers, as well as Brad Marsh. Dave Brown there as well, as from the face-off the puck comes easily to Lindbergh. He can hand behind his own goal to Big Dave Brown. Misses for Derek Smith. It also goes through Moeller back to the Nordiques line, cleared on the backhand blindly by Pat Price, and he gets Gillis. Gillis just hands back to Price, circle to circle, near side across to Moeller, then ahead, but bounced off a Nordique. Brad Marsh threw a check and knocked the gate open to the Nordique bench, and back on comes Poulin. Left circle drive, blocked by Sevigny, rebound, sprawling, beautiful save by Sevigny, twice on Dave Poulin. Back out now at center ice, the Nordiques move it on. Randy Moeller has Gillis going wide and gives to him in the slot. Forehander easily snuffed out by Crossman and played by Brad Marsh. Marsh for Philadelphia in the final 2 minutes of play in the first period, and the team's at even strength. Flyers leading 1-0. Shot it off the far boards and into the Quebec zone. Flyers in the midst of a shift change, as ahead now with it is Roseport. Head manning up the wing to Brent Ashton. Ashton trying to go by Crossman, then slams on the brakes and puts one in front that's punched away to the near boards by Lindbergh. Bounced right back ahead by Rich Sutter on the stick of Ron, then up the right wing to Tocchet. Moves in right circle, and a diving play made by Roseport to deflect it high in the air and over the back glass, out of play. There's a break in the action with 1:36 to go in the first period, and the Flyers leading 1-0.
Conclusion in this period.
Boy, I'll tell you what, here in the first period, we've had a little bit of everything action around that net as the Flyers are going towards the net. Tocchet, Sevigny just comes right out. Roseport dives up. He goes over both of them. The puck is loose, but he was not able to capitalize on it. Flyers lead the Nordiques 1-0 on Craven's second goal of the season. A happy fan with a souvenir, a game puck.
Hartford with a goal. New Jersey with a goal tonight at the Meadowlands. They're tied 1-1 in the first. Only one other game. Detroit, the hapless Red Wings at the start of this season, playing in Minnesota. On now comes Peter Stastny, gets through right circle drive, kicked away by Lindbergh. Rich Sutter rolling back to Howe, wraps it back around far side to McCrimmon. They try to tap it out, but Tocchet can't do it. Turnarounder. Murray Craven, his second of the year at 5:14 from Sinisalo and Zezel, and then Kumpel answering at 18:48 with his third from Peter Stastny and Merwa. That is the first goal yielded by the Flyers in the opening period of their games this year. The shots on goal, 20 Philadelphia and 10 for the Quebec Nordiques. In that first period, Brian Propp had 5 shots, 1/4 of the Flyers' total. As you see that Malone of Hartford and Johnson of New Jersey have knotted that game at 1, and a later start finds Detroit at Minnesota. Poulin had 3 shots in the first period and Kerr 1, so that unit of Propp, Poulin, and Kerr have registered 40 shots in 10 periods this year. And it will be that group that will be commissioned by Mike Keenan to start the second period, with McCrimmon and Howe on defense. Flyers going left to right in this period, and they'll meet up with the checking line again of Gillis, the center, on the left wing, Eagles, and on the right wing, Cote. Left defense, Price. Right defense, Randy Moeller. This is the only visit by Quebec this season. Flyers will be going there the first Saturday in November and the first Saturday in February. If I'm not mistaken, that will be the famous Carnival weekend and a matinee game. All right, it's pumped back in by the Nordiques from the faceoff. Centering pass by Cote, comes right to the near circle, corralled by Tim Kerr. Outlet pass hops off Propp stick at center ice and is sent back in along by Moeller, and it caught a Nordique offside, so a center ice faceoff will result. Gene Hart and his wife Sarah and daughter Sharon are here tonight, and that's certainly good news. They're in the lower press box watching, and Gene just continues to improve following that double bypass surgery. And once Bobby Taylor and Ed Van Imp get situated, we will pass along to you and to them Gene's trivia question for the night. Flyers are making a shift change, bringing out Rich Sutter along with Tocchet and also Ron Sutter. Ron to be the centerman and Tocchet on the right with Rich on the left. Left defense will be Howe and right defense McCrimmon. That stays the same. Nordiques have changed up front, but likewise have not changed in back. Peter Stastny with Ashton on the left, and on the right, Anton Stastny. And it is Anton playing from the faceoff out of his own zone on to Ashton at center ice. Gallops up the right wing. Mark Howe dueling with him there, and Howe able to take it away easily. 4 hands behind his own net. Bouncing puck, tough one for McCrimmon, but he backhands into the glove of Tocchet. Chopped loose by Ashton at center ice, but Tocchet continues to muscle through and play back into the Nordique zone. Wraps it around the boards where it's stopped and thrown by Muller right on the stick of Ron Sutter for a shot, smothered by Sevigny, and he's able to hang on. Giveaway by the Nordiques, and Ron Sutter upset at himself because he marched right in from the left wing offensive circle and let his best wrister go. This occurring just 50 seconds into the second period. The giveaway came from Moeller, and right at the face-off dot in that left wing circle, Sutter moved into the edge of the left circle right in front of Sevigny, who came out to challenge and smother. So Ron Sutter, skating around with a grim look on his face, will test with Peter Stastny. To the right of Sevigny, each team with a shot in this period. Penalties are even at a major apiece and 2 minors apiece. Puck knocked loose by Tocchet out in front, but the Nordiques can recover, though they can't clear. Rich Sutter stepped into by Peter Stastny as the puck sent behind, then back out in front. Crossman has to play at center ice, however, unable to hold in, as along it's Rich Sutter dropping back in the left side of the Nordique zone. Loose one tended by Sevigny and played back along by Rochefort. Tries to work it through, but they can't get out. Rich Sutter keeps in, though it played right to Rochefort near circle, then through to Peter Stastny on the right wing to Anton. Into the Flyers zone. Watched closely by Rich Sutter, gives back. Here's Delorme, right circle shot. That one deflected away, and Brad Marsh plays off the corner boards, though it is gotten by Peter Stastny. Right circle to Ashton. Taken out of the play nicely by Crossman, so the loose one can come across to Ron Sutter. And Ron Sutter's pass misses for Brother Rich and goes down the ice. Handled by Sevigny and flipped back around the near boards of the Nordique zone, and Ron Sutter anticipated well, though it's checked off in the right corner by Rochefort. Loose puck behind. Tim Kerr steps behind the net, rolls it out in front, but it's gathered in by Peter Stastny, though poke checked away by the forechecking Poulin to the far corner. Delorme angrily rifles it off the far boards and all the way back down, where Lindbergh will watch McCrimmon come back for it, and an icing touch-up. There's a break in the action with 17:59 to go in the second period, and the game tied at 1.
You know, the Flyers have 3 more home games left in October, including Saturday night's match with Minnesota. Tickets are available for all 3 games and may be purchased at the Spectrum, all the Showcase stores, and any Ticketron outlet. Or, if you want, give the Flyers a call at 215-465-4500. Well, I'm telling you, you better act quick, because these tickets won't last very long.
And when you call, ask for Joe Watson. From the faceoff, shovel shot in front by Propp is gathered in by Sevigny, hands to Moeller behind, wraps it on the right wing boards by Mann, but Howe had to play at center ice and threw back in. Jimmy Mann able to roll it back out again, but Howe will take for McCrimmon and then to Propp. Set up nicely on the right wing side to Poulin. Poulin plays off the right boards, then tries to center, but Price says no. Price wrapping off to Mann in the corner, but it's lost to Poulin. Centering pass in front. Propp has trouble, but recovers to Howe for a wrister. That one skipped off Paul Gillis. Played by Moeller behind, works the left defensive boards, but not out. McCrimmon keeps. Forehander hits the left goal post, then came back across the crease wide to the right. Thrown right back in front, but Mann has it at the far circle, and the big crowd ooze on that close call as it was nearly Philadelphia up 2-1. Back on now, it's Kerr from center ice to angle off the right corner board. Sevigny sets up behind for Moeller. And Moeller connects with Paul Gillis, has Eagles ahead on the left as he chugs to center ice. Backhands off the left corner of the Flyer boards. In to get it McCrimmon, shift change on. Shaw comes out on defense for Quebec along with Marois. Change in forwards as well, but Peter Zezel has it for Philadelphia. Moves in, took a bump from Kumpel, but got to the left corner and tried to center. It's out in front for a quick shot by Propp that's knocked down by Sevigny. Rebound popped up loose. Backhander by Zezel, smothered by a diving Sevigny, and he hangs on.
Boy, when you're hot, you're hot, and that's exactly what Sevigny is tonight. He's hot as a firecracker. The Flyers had a couple of good opportunities here in the second period. Zezel just comes around. Controlling the puck, just get the puck out in front. It's right here for him. Over the backhand, the goaltender's down, and it actually hit him in the glove. And he covered up the save. Just prior to that, Brad McCrimmon had a quick shot from the point. Not much on it, but it was just where he shot the puck, went by the 2 defenders. Beat the goaltender, who reacted lately, hit the goal post, come back across through the goal crease.
Nordiques prevail on the face-off, move it back out. Shaw head manning on to Hunter. A little toss, sails wide of Lindbergh to the left. Crossman banks it off halfway down the left boards. It comes through for Marois, has trouble. Too many Flyers. On they come at center ice. Craven, but they ruled that the Flyers had passed it across 2 lines in coming out of their own zone, and so a stoppage of play.
Good call by Kevin Collins. Had the Flyer Sinicello had picked up the puck, it'd have been okay, but Craven had come across the red line before the puck did. Then he reached back to pick it up. So good call by Kevin Collins on that 2-line pass.
Gene Hart's trivia question tonight.
Hey, John!
As you hear Michel Bergeron in the background, wanting to get his change. It's very simple. What Nordique in the lineup tonight was drafted by the Flyers? Chief probably won't need to mull that one over, but we'll give the rest of you some time to think back.
Give me some time. I need it.
Oh, okay. Here's one flip back ahead. Going for it, John Anderson at the line, chops toward the corner, but by Sauvé. Played in the Flyer zone behind the net by Marsh. Rolls far side, but Cote in there to play. Cote given a shove by Marsh, and Marsh follows through on Sauvé. As two aside continue the battle. Down goes Zezel. Hand passes it along. Play continues, though, as it's Shaw cruising through the slot for a backhander that was off the side of the goal. Played by Craven, dumps it back up Sinisato. Through center, on it comes to Zezel. Zezel at the Nordique line, looks for Sinisato. Right circle, hammers one. That hopped off the leg of Marois and skidded to the far corner for Cote. Cote advances for Sauvé, but he had it hung up in his skates and then took a shove from Brad Marsh. Sinisato at his own line to Craven. Backhands off the near boards, back into the Nordique zone once more. 4 shots Philadelphia, 1 shot Nordiques in this period. Game tied at 1 with 15:25 to go in this, the second. Cote duels with Howe at center ice. Along it comes for Derek Smith at the Flyer line. Help from Howe, who just rolls it off the far boards back into the Nordiques end. Mario Marois, a one-time New York Ranger property, circles the net and flips one off the high stick. It appeared of Anderson, but it'll go uncontested back into the Flyer zone, where Howe wraps it back around. High past Peter Stastny, and it kicks back across at center ice to Rochefort. Rochefort wanted to reach Delorme, but instead got the Flyers and back on Kelly Eklund into the Nordique zone. Chip from his stick. He goes in with Rochefort, and help comes from Derek Smith, though he lost at the near circle to Ashton. Ashton back through for the Nordiques, along for Delorme. Had it knocked away from behind by Eklund, but recovered enough to send it back into the Philadelphia zone to the right of Lindbergh. Flyers will move it back out. Their turn to make a thrust as on comes Eklund. Watched there by Delorme, but as he started into the zone, it was an offside call. There's a break in the action with 14:36 to go, second period. Craven with a goal, Kumpel with a goal, tied 1-1.
Hey, Flyers fans, here's an offer you can't refuse. For just $24.95, you can relive all those exciting highlights of last season with your very own Flyers VCR tape. Entitled Beyond All Expectations, this tape is a must for your home video library. These tapes are available now at the Spectrum and all the Showcase stores, or just send $24.95 plus $2 for handling to Flyers Video, the Spectrum, Philadelphia 19148.
Back to action here at the Spectrum in a 1-1 tie. Ashton could not penetrate the Flyer line. Anton Stastny knocked down by Tocchet after he tried to shoot in, and still they contested at center ice. Bouncing puck to Ron Sutter, who throws to the far corner of the Nordique zone, and they say it's an offside. 17,000 disputed, but the one man who has control with the whistle, Pat DiPuzzo, said yes, it was.
What had happened is that Richie Sutter was trying to straddle the blue line, and he never had his skate over the blue line. You have to have it out over the blue line.
Well, I'll tell you, for early in the season, these two clubs are really playing excellent hockey. They're really going at one another, and the score is deadlocked at 1 apiece, but it's been a great hockey game thus far.
Minnesota will be here Saturday at 7:30. The Vancouver Canucks on Sunday, the 27th. The next 2 home games here at the Spectrum. And as Chief and Eddie have been mentioning, good seats available for those contests at Ticketron, Showcase stores, or at the Spectrum. Near circle of the Nordique zone from the face-off. It is Price connecting to Moeller. Then at center ice they play through. On with it is Mike Eagles. Right side brush checked by Stuthers, and the puck just yanked on the backhand of Rich Sutter back to the red line. Nordiques try to get back in again. This play will go in, look to be offside for a moment, but along the near boards they continue to go for it. Backing off and watching is Stuthers as 2 players tie it up for a stoppage near Lindbergh.
I've noticed the Nordique defensemen, when they're in their own zone, defensive zone, and they're pressured, they just whip that puck around the boards, anticipating that the winger will be there.
Mike Stuthers, former #1 draft pick of the Flyers. Remember his only game last year, really a big opportunity for him. It was against the Washington Capitals, when he stuck his head around a player and got hit with a shot from the stick of Mike McEwen. So he's back back up for another try at it here tonight.
From the face-off, it is Tim Kerr shaking loose at center ice. Passes on the left side to Howe. Top of the left circle, matched up by Moeller, and Moeller forced Howe to shove one weakly against the back of the Quebec cage. Handled easily by Peter Stastny. Plenty of room ahead at center ice. Tries to get through McCrimmon. Pinballs a pass off Howe, and Propp throws it out of the Flyers zone. It is forward and ahead. They got a 2-on-1. Up the left wing, it's Poulin. Left circle over to Kerr at the right circle, and it was off his stick, and we get a stoppage of play.
I'd like to know what that call is. I think they're blowing it an offside at the blue line. As Tim Kerr, they say, was too quick on that right side. It appeared that Davey Poulin had crossed that blue line first.
I think Koharski makes the call.
He does, because both linesmen were behind the play. He was right on top of it. Or else Kerr would have had an excellent opportunity against Richard Sevigny. We're tied at 1. 13:24 remains in the second period.
Any thought as to which Nordique was drafted by the Flyers?
I know.
Edward?
All right, then tell me.
I'm going to pout. Anton Stastny.
Correct. In a draft that was later wiped out because Anton Stastny was underage at the time. Nordique's offside at the Flyer line. He was picked 198th in the 12th round of 1978. I think at the time the thinking was that Fred Shero had seen him somewhere and liked him.
Simon Nollet, the former Philadelphia Flyer and Kansas City scout, assistant coach here, along with the newcomer to the Nordique coaching staff, Ron Harris. Eddie, you remember him from Ranger days.
Flyers play in, far side Nordique zone. It rolls behind for Sevigny. Got it to Marois. Hold the trigger, but back to Crossman for a shot that's knocked down. Then fed back to Crossman again. Off the right side for Zezel, who couldn't stop. Behind, it's sent off the skate of Craven, followed up by Delorme, and in close quarters to Marois, who spins one back at center ice. It's carried by Dale Hunter. On the right wing, gets it to Kumpel. Has Hunter breaking and hammers one. He scores!
Over the head of Lindbergh. Lindbergh ducked, and when he ducked out of the way, that found its way into the top corner of the net. So Mark Kumpel picks up his second goal of the game. All he did was nothing to shoot at. He took that high shot. It appeared that it might have went off the stick of Brad Marsh, and when Lindbergh was ducking out of the way, it went over his head into the top corner, and the Quebec Nordiques have taken the lead. Mark Kumpel, his second goal, on a shot that appeared to go off the stick of Brad Marsh and over the head of Kelly Lindbergh. That's only the Quebec's first shot of this second period.
Isn't that what face masks are for?
Quebec goals,
Nordiques ahead in the game 2-1. Flyers answer with Kerr moving in the left circle. Leaned on by Price. He got a shot towards the net that was easily handled by Sevigny. They clear but not out. Kerr in the corner. Gets it over for a hard drive that went high and off the glass by Pelle Eklund. Puck out of play, so there'll be another face-off, and this one will come to center ice.
Well, that's Kumpel's fourth of the season. Dale Hunter and Mario Marois pick up the assists as Hunter's telling Kumpel how it went in. I don't think Kumpel even knew how it went in. He just lowered the head and blasted away. First shot of the period. And it proves to be effective as it went right over the head of Pelle Lindbergh. Looked like it dropped a bit, too, after the deflection.
Price for the Nordiques in his own zone. Plays to Moeller, then through on the right wing to Cote. Sends it wide of the Flyer cage to the right. It's shunted behind by Lindbergh for McCrimmon. Dumps it off where Kerr is locked up with Price. And it bounces loose for McCrimmon to play. Near corner, wraps around on the roulette wheel to the far side. Nordiques have it, but just been a blind pass that is taken by Eklund and through center on to Kerr. Feeds the right wing to Brad McCrimmon. At the right circle, forehands it in front, and that just idly by the front of the net, watched by Richard Sevigny. Taken by Cote, dumped behind now for Moeller. Close quarters for Price, but interceding is Eklund, though Moeller can recover behind and try the opposite side to Cote. Alain Cote moving to center ice. Hook checked a couple of times by Derek Smith at the Flyer line. Gotten by Howe. Works cross ice over to Brad McCrimmon. McCrimmon right back. Leads toward Price's side of the ice for the Quebec defense. Dumps to that same corner, but Randy Moeller's the one to play it. Moeller's pass tipped, but comes up for Gillis, and he flipped one that went by Thomas Eriksson and into the Flyer zone. With this, the Nordiques will take time to change lines. Across now it comes to Stuthers at center ice. It's forehanded in by Rich Sutter. Stopped behind by Sevigny. Sevigny chased by Ron Sutter. There'll be a penalty coming up. it'll be a slashing call on Ron Sutter.
Oh, he blew that one.
I disagree totally.
He missed him. There's a break in the action with 11:06 to go in the second. It is the Nordiques 2 and the Flyers 1.
I disagree, but it appears that he did take a pretty good swing at him, but Sevigny retaliated
with a high stick.
Exactly.
2 minutes for slashing. Time 8.
Well, that'll give Quebec their third power play opportunity of the game. They had 2 in the first period and went scoreless, so they'll pick up their third opportunity at 8:54.
Richie Sutter was heading towards the bench. One of the Nordiques,
Normand Rochefort, went after him.
Took a swing at him with a stick. And it appears there's going to be no penalty called as Rochefort is on the bench, but he took a two-hander at Richie Sutter as Sutter was going towards the Flyers players bench.
Sutter picks Ron Sutter, that is, the 2-minute minor for slashing at 8:54. Quebec will be on a power play. And then that little altercation right at the two players' benches.
Whether you make contact or attempt, it can still be called a slash, and that was the case this time on Ron Sutter's part, as McCrimmon is shorthanded along with Brian Propp and Howe, but the Nordiques come on. They try a pass across that bounces, and Anton Stastny has to recover with help at center ice. Gives us a chance to tell you that Brian Propp is also out for the Flyers shorthanded, and he stirs things up to cause another stoppage, or rather a breakup of the Nordique thrust, and the Flyers can clear. And tripped up to the ice, John Anderson back in his own zone. Play will continue now as it's banked along by McCrimmon, along to Propp at the Quebec line. Can't penetrate, so on now comes Peter Stastny, playing to an empty wing, vacated by Anderson and played by McCrimmon. Right back on, they have a 2-on-1. In comes Poulin, left circle drive wide. Rebound just beyond the reach of Propp. Following up, though, is McCrimmon to keep pressure on. Rolls behind. Poulin there. Backhander is blocked by a stick. Loose puck thrown behind again, and Poulin tries to tie up Delorme, but it comes to the near side, and Brian Propp continues to work. A minute has gone off on the power play to the Nordiques, and they have gotten no further than 5 feet inside the Philadelphia blue line. Now it's Delorme, along for Peter Stastny. Took the check from Howe, but kept going. Poked away the loose puck by McCrimmon. We get a stoppage of play, and I think that might be the even up.
You called it right, Mike, as Stastny is headed towards the Nordique players bench. A high sticking call indicated as Stastny does not totally agree with Puharski, but nonetheless, he will be headed into the penalty box. Time of that penalty is 10 minutes and 11 seconds, so we're 43 seconds remaining in the Flyers penalty. The high sticking call on Stastny, the faceoff will be taken outside the Flyers zone, so in 43 seconds, the Flyers will enjoy their power play opportunity.
No wonder Peter Stastny is a little bit confused, because he was bringing his stick back after it got cut up in the equipment and wondered why the call. But there goes the power play for Quebec. Flyers have 43 seconds remaining on Ron Sutter's slashing minor. Then barring any further penalties, they'll have a power play opportunity.
4 aside. This is the second time tonight we've seen that. Brad Marsh moves it outside the Quebec line, shoots it off the right corner board. Sevigny plays the bounce, taps it right back. It's off Dale Hunter, sent back to the right point. Here's Eriksson, forehand shot, blocked down nicely on defense by Price. Halfway up the right wing boards, Eklund tried to tap to the corner, but the Nordiques recover and hold behind in Moeller. 24 shots Philadelphia and 12 for the Nordiques. As on through to center ice come the Nordiques, but they have to scamper back as Moeller is pursued by Eklund and chased deeper. In 10 seconds, the Philadelphia penalty will be up, and the Flyers will have a 1-minute and 14-second power play. And they have it at center ice with Eriksson moving to the line. Rolls for Eklund at the right circle. Forehander sticked away to the far corner by goaltender Richard Sevigny. Now the power play's on, and Marsh centers one through the crease wide. Back to the right point, Eriksson. Forehander. That one tipped wide by Derek Smith. Marsh along to pinch and keep it in, but his pass is broken up, though he gets it back for a shot from the left circle. Knocked away by Pat Price in front of the goal. To the far side, it is cleared by Kumpel and back down. 50 seconds to go. Philadelphia power play. Third power play for the Flyers tonight. Puck dumped in by Sinisalo, who comes for a shift change. Sevigny playing behind the Quebec goal, banking it off the left defensive side where Cote clears. Crossman going back to get it for Philadelphia. Has Zezel out there as well as Prop, Sinisalo, and Tim Kerr. Prop just outside his own line. Close-quarters pass back to Crossman, then up the left side to Tim Kerr. Moves into the Nordiques zone, shuffles back for Crossman's drive. That one's blocked down by Marois. Looks to feed one out and gets it up the near side for Gillis. Hope from him, though, at center ice by Prop. Turning stick of Sinisalo, feeds through to Zezel. Moving to the right circle. Zezel trying to get around in front. One-hander is sent away by the goal stick of Sevigny. Ripped back along, but off Sinisalo's hip. Halfway down the right wing boards of the Nordique zone, they battle. Gillis at the corner. Tied up momentarily by Prop, then punching at it is Sinisalo. Prop to Sinisalo. As penalty time is up to the Nordiques, Zezel at the right point. Hands to Sinisalo, right circle. Forehander tipped in front, but then sent away by Sevigny. In the left corner, Crossman tries to center. Knocked down in front was Prop. Play continues, and behind with it is Marois. Bumping it back along the near boards. Nordiques just want to get it out of the zone. A hard check thrown by Gillis on Sinisalo, but the Flyers keep it. Right wing corner Prop. Sealed up, though, by Marois. Puck dumped behind. Tim Kerr has it. In front is Zezel. Kerr walks right around in front. Whistle. Stoppage of play as there's an injury in the near corner. And more out in front.
I'll tell you what happened is Zezel took a swipe at Sevigny, and Sevigny was swiping at him in front of the net. And of course, anytime your goaltender's involved in anything, everybody's going to come to his aid. But that net was jarred off its magnets by the Quebec goaltender Sevigny when there was nobody around him. And they're wondering how they could stop that. Well, there's a delay of the game call they could make.
7:18 to go, second period. There's a break in the action. Nordiques ahead 2-1.
Zezel was cutting around the outside, going towards the net. Got a stick underneath the shirt. Zezel just turns around. Takes a swing.
Even hitting that
Sevigny. And he hits Sevigny, and then Sevigny comes back and gives him the shot, but he was going after Stastny. And then all the players started milling around with the referee and the linesman involved, but it was mistaken identity. Wrong guy.
Penalty number 1, Richard Sevigny, 2 minutes for roughing.
So Sevigny is going to pick up a 2-minute minor for roughing.
Well, now, Michel Bergeron's upset. And he should be upset, Michel Bergeron. But I guess referee Koharski just saw the retaliation. But, boy, I'll tell you, there's been 3 pretty strange calls in the last 5 or 6 minutes by referee Don Koharski.
You think that first one was a domino effect on the second and third?
Well, I think he probably is trying to keep things under control. He probably feels that this game is about to explode, and he's going to try and do it by making sure that enough people are in the penalty box to try and diffuse everybody.
I would have to agree with him. He's got to keep things under control because both these clubs, they almost have a mutual dislike for one another.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, if you keep calling cheap penalties, that just adds to the frustration. You got to start giving good ones out, not these makeup ones.
Mike Keenan was up on the Flyers bench for a moment. Face off right in front of that bench, near dot outside the Quebec blue line. Randy Moeller gets it from the face-off and clears off the far boards back into the Philadelphia end. 1:50 on the power play as it's just gotten underway. Zezel at center ice, passes through on the left side to Mark Howe. Creeps to the left circle, looks at the front, has Sinisalo there. Controls at the top of the left circle, has Prop to pass to nearby. Goes cross ice, top of the right circle, Zezel. Forehander is well wide, but it comes right back over to Howe. Then back middle of the ice, blue line Prop. Had it poked away nicely by Mike Eagles to center ice. Flyers regroup as back on comes Prop, but couldn't get by the checking of John Anderson, and so the Flyers must give chase on Anderson's clear all the way back down. It is Sinisalo whipping it up the left side to Howe. Pass off Tim Kerr's stick at the line, gathered in by Marois, can't clear out. Halfway up the boards, it skids over to Howe. Howe able to keep in, but passed right to Marois up the far boards, and he cleared. So Lindbergh tends once more. 6:20 to go, second period. Glad you've joined us tonight from the Spectrum in Philadelphia. Quebec leading in the game 2-1. Flyers on the power play with 55 seconds to go. It's shot into the Nordiques zone, cleared back around by Sevigny, and if the Nordiques hurry, they've got a 2-on-1. Moving out is Gillis. Dropping back on defense is Crossman. Gillis a right circle shot, steered away by Lindbergh in the rebound, easily handled by Eklund. Back up by speed Pelle Eklund, right to the Nordiques line. Drifts off and hands to Kerr. Gives back to Eklund, left side, pass in front off Sevigny, and flop loose, but Crossman turn arounder, and that pinballed off a skate wide to the right. Eklund back to the point to McCrimmon. Back along to Eklund, right circle. In front, couldn't get it to Kerr. As Marois anticipated and hands back out at center ice to John Anderson. One man back, it's McCrimmon, and a nice work by Brad McCrimmon on defense. Frees it up for Crossman. 12 seconds left, power play is on. Comes Craven, hands deep slot. Crossman drives, 6 save on the play to Sevigny. And it is Price clearing back down. 4 seconds left. Soon to come from the penalty box, the man who served the minor for Sevigny, and he is back out. That is Peter Stastny. Anton Stastny punched it loose at the flyer line to the right corner. He and Crossman go. Peter Stastny watching along with Ron Sutter as they battle in the corner. Puck knocked loose by Ashton. Ashton in with Crossman. Puck comes out in front. Peter Stastny shot tipped away by McCrimmon and spun back out to center ice by Tocchet. Under 5 minutes to play, second period. Nordiques miss on a passing play, but they'll wipe off icing as it is Crossman off the right defensive boards of his own zone to Tocchet. Outlet pass at center ice for Rich Sutter, who's able to pump it by to the left circle, moves right in front, and a sprawling play really by Rochefort, who was able to keep his feet while sliding across and was able to deflect it back up. Nordiques move in, top of the right circle. Anton Stastny hits the left post with his wrist shot. And it is the Flyers who can work it back out. Rich Sutter one-handedly on to Brad Marsh. Marsh moving on Delorme as well as Anton Stastny, peels off and sends it behind. It's Sevigny dumping right boards, but right to Zezel. Misses on his pass to the right corner for Tocchet, and it goes to the far side for Anton Stastny, and we have a stoppage of play as Don Koharski is taking a look toward the Nordiques net, which has come off one post. There's a break in the action with 4:14 to go in the second period. It's Quebec 2 and the Flyers 1.
Boy, I'll tell you what, Anton Stastny had a great opportunity down deep in the Flyers zone as Brad Marsh was backing in, giving him the shot. He just unloaded a good, quick, hard wrist shot and used the defenseman as a screen, put it right by the outside of him, right off the far goal post. After getting by Pelle Lindbergh as he kicked the pad out, attempting to make that save, but a good, quick, hard wrist shot beat Pelle Lindbergh and hit the goal post. The score still remains at 2-1 in favor of the Nordiques.
Flyer fans a bit chagrined. They've seen an unusual game, a very hard-hitting game that was forecast at the top, and just a carryover from the type of fistic action that we saw in the playoffs last spring. From the tie-up behind the Nordiques net, puck goes to the right corner. Sinisalo checked there by Pat Price, coming by as Hunter. Can't get it by Thomas Eriksson's reach. Eriksson plays back down toward the right corner. Zezel moves right out, right circle pass in front, blocked down by Delorme, and the rebound to the far corner where Hunter goes in and barreling in with Zezel. Pressed there to the boards by Delorme, and Hunter can retrieve and clear, but not beyond Eriksson. At the right point, a shot, forehander knocked down. Rebound played by Price at the circle, but gotten by the Flyers. Sinisalo's pass off, and Nordiques skate, and Quebec can outlet. On now comes Anderson. Big shot from the red line, sailed off the glass, high over the net of Philadelphia. Craven dumps back off to Zezel. Flyers turn back up ice, 2-on-2. Zezel cross ice near side to Sinisalo, plays it through to Eriksson, and his pass cross ice was through Craven, but he recovers back to Stothers at the left point. Rips one back around that sails to Sevigny behind, and he just sets it up for Rochefort. Banks it off the far boards to Hunter. Just a very calm outlet to center ice that Doug Crossman comes across to take at the red line for Philadelphia. Along now to Dave Brown, who backhands it in wide to the right at Sevigny. He tends it behind for Moeller to handle in the final 3 minutes of this second period. Quebec ahead in the game 2-1. Both of their goals have come from Mark Kumpel. The lone Flyer goal from Murray Craven. Cleared back down by the Nordiques, and Marsh sets up, handing over to Pelle Eklund, far circle. Near circle, works it to Crossman. Outlet pass comes on to Derek Smith. Moves on Price and falls down. Fans want a penalty. Play continues near corner. Marois just skies it out of his own zone to center ice, and Marsh watches that sail over his left shoulder. Can control back in his own zone. Brad Marsh chased behind, then smoked out by Cote's forechecking. It's played ahead by Derek Smith, but to Marois, who clears back in and caught a man well offside. The delayed call will not be whistled as the Nordiques safely played from center ice back in, though it is Eklund escaping for Philadelphia. Gets by one and heads to the line. Eklund plays for Derek Smith, who hadn't anticipated that. Left corner, he's given a shove by Marois. Derek Smith out of control momentarily with no stick to work with. Now is able to recover behind for Eklund. Out around in front, couldn't get the right side shot away. Then tries one forehander that went wide about 3 feet. Turnarounder by Howe, skips off Price's stick at the near circle, and Price will try to loft one to center ice. Succeeds, however, in clearing it into the third row. There's a break in the action with 1:49 to go in the second period. It's Quebec 2 and the Flyers 1.
You know, Michael, was pretty incredible here. There's 1:49 remaining here in the second period. The Nordiques have only had one shot on goal, and that shot they scored on to take the lead at 2-1. The Flyers had 7 shots on goal and have not been able to beat the goaltender, Sevigny. The Nordiques are leading this in the second period, 2-1. But a tight checking display put on by the Flyers here in the second period, only allowing the Nordiques the one shot on goal, which they're able to capitalize on.
And a shot from the faceoff by McCrimmon sailed up over the glass off a Nordique stick. So again, it'll come in the circle to the left of Richard Sevigny.
Kind of a turnaround period from the first. The first period was wide open. This one here, they really tightened up defensively.
You expect any change by either team in the third?
The Flyers have to do a little bit more than they've done here in the second.
From this face-off, they work it back as far as McCrimmon right point, sent a backhander that was high and off of Delorme. Rocheport goes, but instead it is Propp's backhander flagged down by Delorme. Still they try, and Delorme can finally throw it out to center ice. Came across to Ashton, who sends it off the left corner boards of the Flyers zone. McCrimmon goes in there, and along with it is Anton Stastny to a side, and it comes halfway up the boards to Tim Kerr. Tries to work it ahead to Propp, but that one thrown free by Muller. Still at center ice they play, and it's Mark Howe for Philadelphia. Back along now to Poulin. Poulin tries to work across to Kerr, but that's broken up by Peter Stastny. Anton can't clear, kept by Howe. Left circle shot, that one goes wide. Scooped up by Pat Price behind, and Price just flipped one that goes through Ashton and all the way back down. Pelle Lindbergh will watch this one be tapped up by Mark Howe, so the Flyers will succeed in getting a face-off back near Sevigny.
Hartford is tied with New Jersey now, 2-2 in the second period. The goal scorers were Newfield for Hartford and Pichette for New Jersey. 51 seconds remaining in the second period. Nordiques 2, the Flyers 1.
When you played, did you like games like this, Ed?
I like close contests, but also I like the blowouts where we were ahead. I didn't like being down by 5 or 6, but I sure enjoyed being ahead by 5 or 6. It makes the game a lot more fun and a lot easier to play.
What were the most points you had in a game?
I think 1, maybe 2.
Did you have 2 goals in Boston once?
Yes, I did.
1 out of the penalty box, I think.
Boston went into shock after that.
Puck sent off an uneven piece of boards in the Nordique zone, and Craven tried a backhander that was flagged down by Quebec and cleared all the way back down. And so once again we'll have an icing call, and with 36 seconds to go, the faceoff will come near Sevigny. Players must be wondering what they need to do to get one past Sevigny with 28 shots.
I think if they keep shooting, eventually something's got to go in. Right now the faceoff is down in the Nordique zone. There's 36 seconds remaining. Plenty of time. Brad McCrimmon, who won the Barry Ashby Trophy last year, which is emblematic of the best defenseman on the Flyers hockey team. He had an outstanding season. His playoffs were cut short with a body check from Will Paymont where his shoulder was separated. They got to sure use Brad McCrimmon against the Oilers in the finals.
McCrimmon invested heavily in a lot of bodybuilding equipment, and it has really paid dividends. Highly bulked up as he is at the right point position. Mark Howe on the left. A warning issued by Pat DiPuzzo toward Derek Smith, who's at the edge of the left circle. Zezel, the face-off man, and right behind him, hoping to pull the trigger, is Sinisalo. Sinisalo instead just tips it back to Howe at the left point, flips wide to the left of the net, scooped up behind by Derek Smith, tries to get a centering pass away, but he was shoved off by Marois. Played by Moeller along to Eagles. They outlet try for Cote. Instead, though, it is Mark Howe. Then along to Peter Zezel, stepped into by Gillis as he reached the Quebec line, and so that play malfunctions. And in the final 15 seconds, the Nordiques send it back into the Flyers zone. Right back ahead, it's McCrimmon. Little pass tapped back on by Zezel to Sinisalo. Can't penetrate the Nordiques line as Price takes it away and throws out. McCrimmon unwinds with 4 seconds to go. That's from center ice right into the catching glove of Sevigny, and that'll do it on the period. The Nordiques, to correct what we said at the end of the first, they added a shot. We said 10, and they added one during the intermission to make it 11. In that period, Quebec just got 1 shot. The Flyers had 9, and the 2-period totals are 29-12. But the scoreboard tells the story. Kumpel with 2, Craven with 1. Craven, 5:14 of the first from Sinisalo and Zezel, and then 2 Kumpel goals from Peter Stastny and Marois at 18:48, from Hunter and Marois at 7:19. 2-1 going into period 3. The shots, 9-1 Flyers in the second, 29-12 over the game. But they trail by 1. 2 other games tonight, Hartford and New Jersey, deadlocked at 2, play in the third at the Meadowlands, and at the Met Sports Center, Minnesota, commanding the Detroit Red Wings by a count of 4-0, and all the money spent. And the Red Wings come into tonight's game with just 1 point in 4 previous outings. Our attention shifts to center ice with Propp on the left wing, Kerr on the right, Poole in the center. And you can guess the checkers are out. The checkers being Cote, as well as Gillis, the center, and the left wing, Mike Eagles. Nordiques clear in. It's handled by McCrimmon behind. McCrimmon matched up with Howe on defense, and the answering defense pair, Price as well as Moeller. It's sent in right circle. Forehand shot was blocked by Sevigny. It came from Dave Poulin. Puck picked up, though, in the Nordique zone. Howe's shot hit off the back of a Nordique and then was lacrossed ahead, and it's brought back up now at center ice and just thrown back to the right corner Flyer zone by Eagles. Howe turning behind his own net. Flyers moving from right to left in this period as Howe connects with McCrimmon. Ran into Anton Stastny, who's able to get free and move in. Heels off, though, near the blue line, and then passed it right across that line. Brian Propp right there to say thank you. Moves it back up to the Nordique side. Flips from the left circle, but that cut off by defensive-minded Norman Rochefort. Spins one at center ice that came right to Crossman, whose pass tipped by Eklund and back down slowly, trickling in on Sevigny. Nordiques try to play once more. Anton Stastny does a flamingo and just lets a clearing pass go all the way down for an icing touch-up by Crossman. 1:07 gone in the third. Nordiques ahead by a count of 2-1. The McVicker stats are here. Jamie McVicker points out that in head-to-head face-offs, Ron Sutter has won 3 and dropped 6 to Peter Stastny. They've been matched up more often than not on face-offs. Tim Kerr is overall 1-0 on Gillis, and probably the preeminent face-off man is Peter Zezel. When he's faced Gillis, has won 4 out of 5. And Michel Bergeron, perhaps noting that, has Zezel facing off against Peter Stastny this time. Marsh a drive from the left point, and that's sticked away to the right corner glass by Sevigny. Ashton banks it along the near side. Marsh comes pinching along. It's brushed from him, but Sinisalo follows up nicely. Zezel left circle over to Craven. Short-sider is held off by Sevigny, and then he loses his balance and falls down after the whistle, but he had it trapped. Sevigny has faced shot number 32 of the night. It was a short-sider, edge of the left circle from Murray Craven. Trapped it between the skates and then just crumpled down on his back to the ice to get the stoppage of play. And so Craven, who has scored once tonight, denied by Sevigny early in the third. 1:23 gone in a 2-1 Quebec advantage. Marsh holds it in from the face-off. Behind to Zezel. Tries to tuck one out in front, and that's pinballed behind. Gotten by Sinisalo. Works it back to the point. Marsh in the slot. Flips one into the glove of Craven, but then it's poked from him by Hunter. Down goes the Flyer. Zezel. Off comes the Nordique. It'll be Pat Price. There's a break in the action with 18:22 to go in the third. The Flyers to get power play number 5. They trail 2-1. It was a play near the slot area that saw Pat Price pulling down Peter Zezel. For Price, his second minor penalty of the night, and on the year, penalty minutes 7 and 8. And for the power play, Philadelphia will send out Tim Kerr, as well as Zezel and Sinisalo. Crossman at one point, Propp at the other. Face-off near Sevigny. Price off on a trip. It comes elapsed time at 1:38 in this third period. On the power play, it's Zezel at the left circle. Has a man in front. Feeds back slot. Drop shot. Bounced loose off of Tim Kerr, it appeared, and then bounced behind where Rochefort plays. Norman Rochefort just steering it one-handedly as far as center ice, bumped by Sinisalo, and the loose one given up to Crossman at the Flyer line. Hands back across to Prop, who saw that one go right off him, and Gillis can clear from his own line back into the Flyer zone. Crossman kept it from going the length, leads right back to the Nordique line, pulls off and flips one left circle to Kerr. Kerr toward the corner, rolls one back along that Crossman keeps at the left point. For Zezel, floats in front for Kerr, and it went through. Kerr trying to reach for the backhand short-sider, and that's shut off by Sevigny. Puck behind, and yelling is Sevigny as he yells freeze to his teammates, but the puck comes loose along the near boards of the Quebec zone. Crossman able to keep it in, floats one that comes to Kerr, edge of the left circle, looks to center, got it to Zezel, hurried a shot and fanned on it, keeps left circle in front to Kerr, deflected in front, it pops loose, scramble in front, and they hang on. And some shoving after the whistle.
Ryan Prop's really upset. But the Quebec Nordiques are doing what they're supposed to, is trying to get them out of the way. And it was Randy Moeller who he was upset with. And boy, I'll tell you, Flyers have done everything but put that puck behind Richard Sevigny. You talk about a goaltender has to steal at least 10 to 15 games a year for you. Well, right now at this time, Sevigny's well on his way to being the thief of the night. Flyers have 54 seconds remaining in the power play. And again, excellent play. Well, a fan shot by Zezel, but the patience he had and the presence of mind to move it. And the puck goes up, and Tim Curl even tried to tap the head part of the mask on Richard Sevigny, and then the bouncing puck, and Sevigny was able to corral it with that big catching glove. But you're looking at one of the best defensive teams in the league at this point, as Eddie pointed out in between periods. Also, they rank second in the league at this point in killing penalties at 91% efficiency.
Howe from the left circle, caught helmet mask high by Sevigny and just whipped back out. So McCrimmon will take over at his own line. The first year that the Nordiques were in the NHL, 79-80, they were 17th in team defense. They moved up to 14th twice, then 16th in the last 2 years, 5th. Eklund gets into the Nordique zone, pulled down, fans want a penalty, puck cleared. It'll be Craven, middle of the ice at the red line, just drifting backward to his own line and hands near side to Brad McCrimmon. 20 seconds to go power play. Flyers trailing 2-1 with 16:40 to go in the third. On comes Eklund in the shadow of Poulin, moves to the slot, backhander in front, grabbed and cleared back down the ice by Marois. Lindbergh sets this one up to Brad McCrimmon, who has just 5 seconds to utilize the man advantage. On now to Howe at the line. Hard drive off the leg of Moeller. Puck chipped right around in front, and Moeller got a second chance to knock it down. As penalty time is up to Pat Price. Price at center ice couldn't get it loose from Eklund, but they follow on across, and Gillis lets a shot go that's off Lindbergh and pops to the near circle of the Flyers zone. Now it's Howe forehanding behind his own goal around to McCrimmon. Has Rich Sutter moving, but popped it by him at center ice. So it's Rochefort at the line. Had it knocked away by Rich Sutter to the corner. And so it's Moeller in to help out and drive it around. Brad Marsh unable to hold in at the left point. And so a center ice face-off on the offside to result.
Wow, with the Center Twins making their appearance on the ice, they'll also be making an appearance at a showcase store in the Montgomery Mall from 2:30 to 4 p.m. on Saturday, October the 26th. You can get their autograph and at the same time pick up tickets for a future Flyers game. That's October 26th from 2:30 to 4 p.m. The showcase store in Montgomery Mall, the Twins, Rich and Ron Sutter.
From the face-off, it is Marsh handing across to Crossman. Sailed in the far board, Sevigny in back to stop. Barreling in is Ron Sutter, able to get a close quarter pass to Tocchet. Maneuvers right in front, then ran into a logjam. It's Price knocking it loose to the far boards. Crossman pinches to keep it moving. Along behind, Ron Sutter dueling, but emerging with it is Peter Stastny. Rolls near boards to Anton, who's jousted by Brad Marsh. Loose puck still in the zone. And chopped by Anton Stastny all the way to center ice. Crossman playing on the turning stick of Brad Marsh, near side in the neutral zone. Floats one back up the wing that's brushed by Rich Sutter, but right to Shaw of the Quebec defense. Limited appearance for Shaw tonight. Got it to a teammate, but the pass malfunctioned, and Ashton spun around by Tocchet, so on comes Rich Sutter. Moves to the right circle, then went down. Tocchet followed up, though, to Ron Sutter in the right corner. Then to Brother Rich, edge of the right circle. Goes down with the puck underneath, trying to jam it loose was Peter Stastny. To the right corner, Ron Sutter goes down, and they ruled the Flyers had a hand pass. Rich Sutter over to argue argue vehemently with the referee, Don Koharski. There's a break in the action with 15 minutes to go in the third. Nordiques 2, Flyers 1.
Well, Richie Sutter and Ronnie Sutter and also talking out there, been very aggressive in their forechecking. They're making things happen down inside the Quebec Nordiques zone. This time Richie was called with a hand pass. He protested vehemently to Koharski, but the protest was all in vain as the faceoff will be taken outside the Nordiques zone. 15 minutes remaining here in the third period. Nordiques lead 2-1.
The shots are 35 Philadelphia and 13 Quebec as the Flyers play in from center ice. Sevigny with a little trouble, but no harm as Rochefort is right there, cleared to the far side. Zezel pinching, but throwing back out is John Anderson. Stuthers connects with Thomas Eriksson, who must rag back to his own line, then hand back over to Stuthers. Spins it back for Eriksson as the Flyers looking to make a play through center. Eriksson will carry. Gets by 1, by 2. Staggers at the line and offside with Sinisalo as they headed in.
Well, that's what a defenseman can do. When you've got those back checkers coming back, you can stand up at the blue line and take a pop at the oncoming Flyer, and that's exactly what Rochefort did. He took a pop as he stepped around the outside. The defenseman was right there waiting for him and just said, hello, welcome to the blue line, and drove Eriksson into the boards and down to the ice. But that's what back checkers will do. They'll allow the defenseman to stand up.
That welcome was without a red carpet, too.
Just short of capacity, 17,126 watching here. A 2-1 Nordique advantage as Howe unwinds from center ice wide to the left and off the back of the goal. It's played by Rochefort. Works it to his right, up the right defensive boards to Kumpel. Pass was well too far for Anderson, and so it's corralled by McCrimmon back in his own zone. Lost to Anderson, left circle. Anderson around in front. Couldn't get a shot away, and McCrimmon came by to make up for his mistake. Back along its headman to Craven, on the right wing to Zezel. At the Nordiques line, just floats it to the left corner. McCrimmon goes in to test with Quebec's defenseman Pat Price. Still, they work toward the corner, and McCrimmon threw one in front, but that cut off. And back up at center ice, it is Dale Hunter, and Hunter just skies one that was a 9-iron shot into the third row. You ever draw a blank on a first name when you have so many from one family in the league? That was Dale Hunter.
I have trouble with that whole family, Dale and Mark. Now that Mark's in St. Louis, it might be a little easier to identify or to remember. But with them both in the province of Quebec last year, it was very tough. You know, we have a real sad note to announce to you fans. Philip Stein, who was 90 in General Schultz's army, passed away this morning at Bryn Mawr Hospital. He was 81 and an awfully good Flyers fan. The services will be held at noon on Sunday at the Riesman Schiller Funeral Home, 301 Westchester Pike in Havertown.
Very sorry to hear that, and our condolences to the family as Brad Marsh leads for the Flyers from center ice in. Sevigny goes scampering way out of his goal to play loose. The centering pass in front is off Sevigny, then Kerr fanned on one shot and got a weak second one away, and now he and Moeller are going at it near the net.
Well, that has been brewing all night long. Randy Moeller has been out there every time. Tim Kerr has been there, and he's been doing an excellent job of screening off Kerr, keeping him away from the goaltender, and doing a real fine job of it. And with Kerr giving his goaltender that extra jab, Moeller making sure that he got out of there quickly, doing his job. And then, of course, when that happens, a lot of times players will lose their tempers in the wrestling matches occur. But Moeller was doing a fine job on Tim Kerr throughout this whole game.
13:33 to go, third period. There's a break in the action with the score still Quebec 2, Philadelphia 1.
You know, Bobby, you mentioned that the Nordique defensemen are doing a great job around that net, keeping the Flyers forwards away, and they certainly have. They've been just taking the man every chance they get. They just don't allow him to jab away at that puck. Timmy Kerr looking for that loose puck. Bowler just goes right after and pushes him. He doesn't hesitate. All of a sudden, the sticks go down. They start to grapple. And Timmy Kerr just wrestles them down to the ice. They each pick up 2 minutes for roughing. Time of that penalty is 6 minutes and 27 seconds into the third period. Kerr had the opportunity, but resulted in 2-minute minors for roughing.
Those penalties, the roughing coincidentals to Moeller and Kerr, come at 6:27 elapsed time in the third period. Philadelphia with 7 shots in the period. Quebec with 1. Near dot outside the Quebec blue line. Puck won by the Flyers and Marsh. hatchets one off the right corner boards of the Quebec zone. Set up by Sevigny, lost by Price. Right corner, Derek Smith. Sends it behind, but just beyond the reach of Dave Poulin. Pinching left side is Marsh. Floated one up over the glass and out of play, and so the faceoff will be brought back to center ice.
Well, a happy fan picks up a souvenir to match the cap he's wearing. But it has been a very strong defensive battle, mainly on the Flyers' part, and the Quebec Nordiques have just had to play strong defense in their own zone, especially in front of their goaltender. And their defense have been very, very sound in that department.
Marsh drives in from center ice. Sevigny sets up behind to Pat Price, clicks one up the right wing to Anton Stastny. Has Peter alongside and gives to him. Peter Stastny outside the right circle, backhands off the right Flyer boards behind where Rich Sutter kicks it free. Goes right to get it, but instead it is Peter Stastny to Anton at the left circle, who sent one in front that was harmlessly wide. Ron Sutter outlets to Rich at center ice. Has Tocchet alongside, lets a hard shot go that cracks off the glass. Tocchet to dig it out at the left hash marks. Rolling it behind, but Ashton is there. Can't get through the checking of Rich Sutter, though Sutter couldn't center because of Marois. And the Nordiques are able to clear to center ice. They have a 2-on-1. Peter Stastny has Ashton on his left and gives to him. Left circle shot, stopped by Lindbergh, and he'll hang on.
Kelly hasn't been tested too severely tonight, but that was the big save as far as the Flyers are concerned. The Nordiques broke out 2-on-1. That's when you've got to have your goaltender come up with a big save. The pass across, Ashton's got time. He gets it off, and Lindbergh makes the initial save with Ronnie Sutter taking Stastny out of the way, and Kelly Lindbergh hangs on to that loose puck for the face-off the zone, but you got to stay in between them. Off the angle, he gets off that good shot that Kelly made the save, was able to cover up that loose puck just outside his goal crease. Nordiques lead the Flyers 2-1, so that was a crucial save by Lindbergh.
Zezel and Dale Hunter for the face-off to the right of Lindbergh. Hard drive by Anderson went wide of his catching glove and wide to the right of the goal. This is Dale Hunter, edge of the circle. Lost momentarily to Howe at the near corner. Spins one back along that Delorme tried to keep in but couldn't, and on with it comes Sinisalo. A man dropping back on defense as Rochefort stops him once, then Sinisalo shot off the catching glove of Sevigny, and it trickled wide. Turned back to center ice by the Nordiques as Dale Hunter checks his stick thinking it might be broken. Meanwhile, Craven to Sinisalo, who directed it out of play, trying to send one high off the glass, and so a center ice faceoff will result.
Boy, I'll tell you, everything is going right. This time Sinisalo trying to make that inside move on Rochefort, who really played him well. Took the quick shot. It was a rolling puck, deflected off the defenseman's stick, and still Sevigny got a piece of it. And quickly, Delorme was back to shoot the puck out of trouble. But Sevigny right now, when this game's over, should head to Atlantic City. He's on a roll.
Did you have a lot of nights when you were on a roll, Jeff?
Answer that honestly. I'm sitting here.
Or was it at Atlantic City?
Yeah.
Far spot outside the Quebec blue line. Stalemating are Poulin and Hunter. And along comes Propp, able to yank it toward the right side, but it was broken up quickly by the Nordiques, and John Anderson goes down on the lean of Derek Smith. Played it back to Marois, who shot it out of his own zone to center ice. Brian Propp takes over there, along to Poulin, has Derek Smith on the right, but it's off the heel of his stick. He goes to the right corner and jams behind, though Marois intercedes, dumping it back along, though not out. Trying to brush it is Poulin, gets it over to Derek Smith, punched away from him, left wing corner by Price, but he recovers to Propp behind. Propp taken off the play, but Poulin is there, tries to get around for a stuffer, but can't. Poulin trying to dig it out from the prone Propp, and center one in front. Derek Smith had a try at it, loose puck right in the crease, and with the help of Price on top of it, Sevigny and Moore shoving at the front of the goal.
Boy, I'll tell you. Again, a perfect example of how the strengths of that butterfly style. When that puck's in close and it's deflected and bouncing around, you cover an awful lot of the net, especially low of the net. And you're able to make it, but the Flyers have just been working and working. That's one thing that you take a look at the positive end of it. They haven't got discouraged. They just kept coming and coming and coming, and it's only the fine work of Sevigny, the Nordique defense, that has been keeping this game at 2-1 Quebec. Because they're just overpowering that club inside that offensive zone, or, whatever the case may be, defensive zone.
At after that flourish by Dale Hunter. Pat Verbeek and Dale Hunter played in the same summer league. Both Verbeeks and the three Hunters. And they've
On
had
the same team?
No,
Oh.
That's the point. They separated them this year because they used to have a lot of brawl when they were all mixed in together. But he said we kept the Verbeek separate from the Hunters, and things seemed to work out pretty well.
That stoppage of play, Tim Kerr of the Flyers and Randy Moeller of the Quebec Nordiques returned to action.
In the circle to the left of Sevigny, puck will be dropped, and from the tie-up coming across was Eagles, but it was sent right in on goal, so Sevigny directs, and the Nordiques want to clear. Cote shovels off Gillis. It's picked up at center ice and backhanded in by Eagles. Easy play for Lindbergh to make. Wanted to set up, nearly set it up for Gillis. Coming by as Eagles to play. Stepped into by Tim Kerr. Back on comes Eklund. At center ice has Craven breaking. Eklund plays the safety to the right corner boards, and it's swung right back off the right glass by Sevigny, but kept on the backhand by Eriksson. Though the Nordiques take over on his board's clearing pass. Sent to center ice where Eriksson retrieves over to Crossman near side. Turning stick of Craven moves right to the Nordique line. Craven had a diving play by Rochefort. Nicely foil his attempt to get in the zone. So again, the Flyers in the neutral zone. This time they'll throw it in. Eklund sending it wide to the right of the net. Scooped up now by Rochefort on defense, and Rochefort has some trouble because in the way was teammate Mike Gillis. Got it as far as center ice where Cote sends in. So this will be Lindbergh's play as both teams make a full-scale change. Rich Sutter, Ron Sutter, and Tocchet coming out for Philadelphia. Ron Sutter dumps in, well wide to the left, and way out to play at Sevigny, brushing it back along. Rich Sutter had a try from the left side, but just could not get further toward the corner. Now forechecking, Rich Sutter takes it away at the left circle. Maneuvers in front, shot blocked on the sprawling play of Marois. It's gotten by Howe. Wrist shot blocked off in front by Sevigny. And Anton Stastny wants to clear, getting it on to Peter Stastny, who skates at the center ice. They move 3-on-3 at the line, and the pass up the left wing for Ashton. Cradles it at the left corner of the Flyer zone. Double team there by McCrimmon and Ron Sutter, so behind it is Mark Howe. Floating one to the corner of the Flyer end, but Anton Stastny gets it from brother Peter on a kick toss. In the right corner it comes again as Tocchet boots it along, but Ashton walks in from the right circle. A shot just smothered by the deflection of Howe to the far corner. Rich Sutter to get that one behind for the Flyers as the clock goes down to 9:30 left in regulation. 2-1 in favor of Quebec. Ron Sutter spinning it back out. McCrimmon stepping on for the Flyers. Ran into Pat Price at the line. Rich Sutter tried to help, but again the Nordiques clear, and you can expect this to happen a good deal as they hold that one-goal advantage. All the way down, Brad Marsh carried off by Ashton, so it's McCrimmon's play instead with 9:10 left. Through at center ice, it misses for Sinisalo, but coming by now is Craven. Over to Zezel, a shot that is pad stopped by Sevigny. Along it's to the point, but Brad Marsh unable to hold because of the checking of Kumpel. In the neutral zone, though it is Marsh prevailing. Marsh with a little pass to Craven, walks into the Nordique zone, drops it off on the right side. Ilka Sinisalo toward the right corner, banking it behind for Zezel. Escapes Hunter's checking, tried to center, and Marsh was shoved down in front of the goal. Again out in front, Sinisalo, a forehand shot goes wide. And it is Anderson outletting back to Kumpel. One man back at Crossman. Kumpel, the only attacker, has a man breaking Dale Hunter. He goes down on the lean of Brad Marsh, and play continues. End to end they're going. Peter Zezel near circle of his own zone just floats it back to center ice as that line beleaguered wants a change. Gilbert Delorme shoots it back in for the Nordiques, and Lindbergh sets it up behind. 8:15 left, third period. 2-1 in favor of Quebec. On out at center ice, it is Propp. Moving along has Poulin breaking left circle pass in front, went wide. Around it is Tim Kerr to play on the far boards, but the Nordiques prevail there, and it is John Anderson getting as far as center ice, and then Hunter sending it further. Mark Howe has to go back near his own goal to play this one. Spins a pass that misses for Kerr. Poulin goes racing back along with Price, and Price there first for the touch-up that results in a stoppage of play on the icing call with 7:52 to go in the third. A break in the action, 2-1 Quebec.
The time is becoming a factor here with 7:52 remaining in the third period. The Nordiques are just playing very, very well in their own defensive zone. They're not letting the Flyers forward stand around in front of the net. They're knocking them down. They're moving them out. And as a result, the Flyers are going to have to get in there and make things happen for themselves. Nordiques leading 2-1.
Good seats for Saturday's game with Minnesota and the following Sunday's game with Vancouver, available at Ticketron Showcase stores or the Spectrum. Also, 5 and 10 game ticket plans may be purchased from the man from Smithers, Joe Watson. Just give him a call at 215-465-4500. Circle to the left of Lindbergh, there'll be a face-off. Gillis will wade in against Pelle Eklund. From the tie-up, it is back, and reaching was Moeller, but just pulling away, thinking there might be danger in doing so. And so a center ice play thrown back in by the Nordiques is collared by Marsh, tapped ahead to Derek Smith. Shift change on Quebec. On comes Smith. Couldn't penetrate the Nordique line because of Ashton. Ashton plays for the Nordiques, just cradling it back into his own zone to Marois, working near side now to Shaw. His pass right on the money to Crossman of Philadelphia, who starts it ahead for Brown, who just can't get back in. Nordiques are standing up four abreast at the line. This is Ashton cruising right in front of his own net with it, and the forechecking by Derek Smith caused the Nordiques a start for a moment. Now Quebec clears out as far as center ice. Marsh tries to get one through to Brown, but that's taken by Shaw in the Quebec zone. Clicks one on the stick of Peter Stastny along to brother Anton. Gets just inside the Flyer line where it's cleared out of play by Rich Sutter.
You know, Michel Bergeron made a nice move when they had Brown out there with Derek Smith and number 9 Pelle Eklund. He made a very quick line change right at the bench there. He pulled off the line and put out the Stastnys along with Brent Ashton, hoping that he'd have Peter Stastny up against Pelle Eklund, who's not as physical as Ronnie Sutter, and thought that Ashton might be one step quicker than Dave Brown. So he was trying for a mismatch.
Peter Stastny opposite Ron Sutter. Just inside the Philadelphia blue line, near side of the ice. 7:02 left in the third. They must play at center ice. Moeller just shuffleboarding it back to Price on the stick of Anton Stastny, who does the compulsory at the center circle. Working on back to Price, tried for Moeller but missed. Ron Sutter working for brother Rich, but it's chopped free at the Nordique line, overskated by a pair and gotten by Ashton, who turns and tries to get by Ron Sutter. Moves into the right circle, couldn't get by McCrimmon, who just punches it back out. On now comes Delorme, sailing it in with two Nordiques trapped offside, and so another neutral ice face-off to come.
It appears right now the Nordiques are winding down to 4 or 5 defensemen here in the late stages of the third period. They're going with their best, their strongest, and their strongest and their best have been doing a good job all night long. They've shut the Flyers down. The Nordiques lead 2-1. This is Ronnie Sutter's first game of the season.
He's been out with a pulled muscle high up on the hip. And what's bothered him so much is that he's having difficulty pushing off the leg, which makes quick starts and stops and sharp turns very difficult. But he appears to be getting a lot better.
Puck played by the Nordiques behind their own goal. The play continues. Moeller in the corner, though it's knocked loose by Kerr and centered quickly for Propp, but he was defended by Gillis. Behind it is Kerr, tearing himself loose at the circle, falls and got a shot on goal backhand that was kicked away by Sevigny. Puck loose, it's Propp, left wing corner, looking to the front. Kerr waging a war there, so the pass comes behind, and it's Crossman trying to tuck it in front. Propp, a forehand pass in front, comes loose to the near circle. Marsh trying to keep it in, working hard, and a pass came back towards Propp, but he couldn't handle it at the blue line, so a center ice play must result. Now it's Gillis for the Nordiques, just dropping one back into the Flyers zone. It slides near Crossman, who can maneuver right back up the middle. Doug Crossman cruising in, deep slot pass, left circle, Propp, shoves towards the corner, and then pushed down to the ice by Gilbert Delorme. Behind it is out to Propp, left circle shot, blocked down in front, scrambling on top of it, Sevigny. There's a break in the action, and Richard Sevigny welcomes it with 5:33 to go in the third. Nordiques 2-1.
Boy, with that stoppage of play, Davey Poulin really gave Don Koharski an earful. I think he's upset with the way they've been screening off in front of the net, but I'll tell you, when you're looking at it in a technical way, it's pure poetry. The defense of the Nordiques are doing an outstanding job of keeping Philadelphia away from the puck and away from the goaltender. And I know that it's very maddening, but that's what you have to do. And Koharski is not calling anything. This is unusual because a lot of times referees will call a lot of that stuff.
I agree, and sometimes in a situation like that, a lot of times when you're being pushed around in the zone, you've got to take matters into your own hands and retaliate to make sure they don't take liberties or extra liberties with you, especially in your own building. But it's also easier said than done.
Who did it for a number of years right here in Philadelphia. The voice of Ed Van Impe as off the face-off Howe. Left circle shot hit off the leg of Gillis in front. It's swept on the backhand to center ice by Eagles. McCrimmon chased down by Cote far boards and pinned up against. So it's Eagles just shuttling it back into the Philadelphia zone. Far circle to Howe. Long pass at center ice on the right wing to Sinisalo. Hands for McCrimmon, who is skating across the ice, and he banks one off the left boards back into the Quebec zone. Sevigny rips it back along far side. It's turned right back to the front by the Flyers, then chopped loose and followed up by Rochefort. Rochefort at center ice for the Nordiques. On the wing to Kumpel, gets away from the check of Howe. Kumpel to the right corner, Flyer zone, centering one in front. Out to the slot, it's picked off by Zezel, moves out 2-on-2 with Craven. Zezel moving in, drop pass Craven, right circle, looks things over, pass in front for Sinisalo, was off post Sinisalo's stick and that of Hunter. Cleared but not out, Craven, a shot floated wide and is trapped by goaltender Sevigny and then released to Marois, cleared off the uneven glass, right circle, forehand shot, blocked off by Marois from Zezel. Zezel up the far board, still trying to control, took a shove from Anderson, and Anderson gets the puck free. Back to Marois, who coolly puts it out to center ice off of Kumpel. Kumpel with the 2 goals for the Nordiques. They lead 2-1 over the Flyers with 4:20 to go in Philadelphia. Offside going into the Quebec zone. There's a break in the action with tempers still high. 4:17 left in the third. 2-1 Quebec.
We've often talked about sitting back in the lead. You shouldn't do it. That's exactly what the Nordiques have done. And as a result, in the last 2 periods, they've only had 3 shots on goal. Flyers going towards the net. The shot was taken wide. Sevigny makes the save. Goes down to the ice, covering up for that face-off. That's what a goaltender has to do when his club's being pressured in their own zone and the puck's around that net, around that goal crease. You can take the pressure off a lot of times by just covering up and freezing it for the face-off.
Fire spot outside the Nordique line. Quebec controls from the face-off. Mulder's pass through at center to Anton Stastny. Tried to clear it in off the near boards, and it hit Pat DePuzzo, the lineman. This time it's Peter Stastny controlling on the back end and clearing in. Brad Marsh takes it behind. Checked by Anton Stastny, so help has to come from Crossman far side. Rifles it off the near boards to the turning back end of Ron Sutter. At center ice in the skates of Marsh, who rolls back into the Quebec zone near corner. It is Sevigny, hung up momentarily, but getting it loose to Peter Stastny on a weak clearing attempt. Back to the point, Crossman able to keep. Though he dumped it to the right circle, it's followed up by Moeller and put on the stick of Ron Sutter of Philadelphia at center ice. Then Ron Sutter locks up with Ashton, loses his stick as on come the Nordiques, and it's sailed to the right corner of the Flyers zone. Brad Marsh takes it there. Fans going about something that Ed Van Imp will tell you when we get a stoppage. On comes Ron Sutter, throws an elbow at Marois. He started into the zone. The Nordiques control, but ice the puck. All the way down, Howe goes back to put the lumber on the rubber. Stoppage of play, Rich Sutter and Anton Stastny still involved, and then the sticks are up at center ice with Ron Sutter and Marois.
That actually started in between Ron Sutter and Marois. As Sutter gave Marois a shot, he got his stick up, and both players were headed toward the respective players' bench. 3 minutes and 17 seconds reminded a fine hockey game here. The Nordiques lead 3-1, but when the fans kind of oohed and awed, this is exactly what happened. Sutter was knocked down to the ice, his stick was loose, and all of a sudden the Nordique, Stasi just pokes it away from him, which is a no-no, and a penalty could be called, but wasn't. To not interfere with another player when he's attempting to pick up his loose stick. Flyers are outshooting the Nordiques 41-14, but trail on the scoreboard 2-1.
To the right of Sevigny. The puck will be dropped. It'll be Eklund to take the face-off for Philadelphia. He'll have Tocchet on his right, Sinisalo on his left, Howe and McCrimmon the defense. And for the Nordiques, it'll be Paul Gillis. Important face-off, one of the bigger ones of the contest. And here are Tocchet and Pat Price ready to go. And getting in, the linesman. So no punches exchanged.
Tocchet is ready to go, but Price is not. That's a repeat of the playoffs from last year. Price was jabbing away in the face-off, trying to distract Tocchet, and that's what a defenseman should do. Tocchet took exception to the fact, dropped the gloves and stick, and Price just stood back with the linesman in between him, and he wasn't going to get involved.
At one time, it would be automatic penalties, but they are permitted to remain. And they line up side by side again and just jawing at one another. Now a little shake of the stick by Tocchet. Dave Poulin comes in. mislead you. McCrimmon and Howe are the defensemen. Eklund, along with Sinisalo and Tocchet. Now Tocchet will move in to take the draw from Gillis. From the tie-up, Nordiques sweep it to the near corner. Marois rifling it back along where Eagles tried to chip one out. McCrimmon tried to keep it in, but must play at center ice. 3:05 left in the third. Nordiques ahead 2-1, but in comes Sinisalo at the right side. Pulls up hash mark. Flip one in front, deflected by Tocchet and saved by Sevigny. Rebound gotten by Eklund. Rolls toward the corner, but Marois clears. Eklund keeps. Flips one in front. Grabbed by Sevigny, and he'll hang on, and Price staring eyeball to eyeball with Tocchet. Again, they drop the gloves in front.
Well, nobody wants to give an inch now. Penalties are being called as Price and Tocchet will be definitely heading towards the penalty bench.
These come at 17:09. Elapsed time in the third period. There's a break in the action with the score. The Nordiques 2 and the Flyers 1.
Plenty of action around that Nordiques zone. The Flyers are pressing, but the Quebec Nordiques will not wilt. They will not give in. They're holding their ground. Penalties have been called to Tocchet and Pat Price.
7, Pat Price. Flyers penalty number 22, Rick Tocchet. Each 2 minutes for slashing.
They both pick up 2-minute minors for slashing. They're drawing at one another in the penalty box right now, but they both are going to serve a 2-minute minor for slashing. Time of that penalty is 17 minutes and 9 seconds. It started in front of the net as the puck was deflected. Tocchet's going to the net. Price is there waiting for him. They turn around, go eyeball to eyeball, and say, okay, this time we're going to go. Only the linesmen were quick to get in there to separate the two players.
Minutes 9 and 10 for Price. Minutes 18 and 19 on the year for Tocchet. This is Tocchet's first game to fail getting a major penalty, at least thus far.
It wasn't for lack of trying.
No. 2:51 left in the third. Face off again in the circle to the right of Sevigny. Nordiques outshot 43-14, but lead 2-1. From it is Propp trying to get one through the defense at the front, but it is cleared, though not out. Howe rips it along, Poulin behind. Has Kerr in front, can't center to him because of a diving play made by Mario Marois. Loose puck at the right circle. It's Propp to Poulin to Propp. Wrist shot sailed wide, and a crisp one as Howe bunches in to try to keep it. Howe centered in front for Propp, but that one flagged down by the Nordique defense and cleared to the Flyer line. 2:20 to go in the third. Mark Howe advancing off the far boards toward Propp. Bumps it by Marois, then took the hit, but the puck followed up on defense by Moeller to center ice. Moeller chops back toward Brad McCrimmon, who puts it on the turning stick of big Tim Kerr. On comes Kerr, but flops one right into the glove of Moeller. He'll just casually bump it back out to Cote, who goes stride for stride with McCrimmon and is carried to the right corner of the Flyer zone. Howe takes the loop from behind, and the third man able to escape. Back up ice now on to Brian Propp. Propp holding up, takes a check from Eagles, then a backhand pass while falling to Kerr. Kerr moving in, just surrounded by blue jerseys, and they prevail to clear to center ice. A minute 42 to go in the third. Puck shot back into the Nordique zone. Down to get it will be Moeller. There'll be no icing here. Pulling up in front to forecheck is Zezel. Then Craven goes back to smoke Moeller out, but back up ice with it comes Rochefort. From the red line, fans not once but twice, but on the third time rolls to the left side of the Flyer zone. Crossman able to dump it back along left defensive board. Zezel up the wing, puck broken up by Anderson, and Anderson just ladles it back in. A minute 15 to go in the third. 2-1 the score, the Nordiques ahead. Dale Hunter from center ice rolls it back into his own zone with a man offside. And again, the Flyers protest from their bench. Near spot, outside the Philadelphia blue line, there'll be a face-off as Zezel jaws with Pat DePuso, the linesman. Craven at 5:14 of the first. Kumpel at 18:48, and then Mark Kumpel again at 7:19 of the second. The Nordiques have had the lead since then. Shots in the period, Philadelphia 14 and Quebec 2. Quebec has had 3 shots since the end of the first period. And we appear to be getting a timeout. When play is resumed, the face-off will be on the near dot outside the Philadelphia blue line. Nordiques coming into this game perfect in 4 outings. Philadelphia with an opening night loss to New Jersey and then 2 wins against Patrick Division opponents over the weekend. Richard Sevigny, the young man who started out in the Montreal chain, the 11th pick in 1977 by the Canadiens, played for their farm team in Nova Scotia and also for a club that wasn't their farm team in the American League at Springfield his first year. Had 11 games with Montreal and 35 with Nova Scotia the second before finally making the Canadiens in the fall of 1980. It was last year, after having a part in eliminating the Nordiques in the playoffs, that Sevigny went from Montreal to Quebec. All right, strategy handled. Play about to resume. And Tim Kerr hops over the boards to play left wing. Craven comes to the bench. It'll be Zezel, the centerman. On the right side, it'll be Ilka Sinisato. Left defense, Howe. Right defense, Crossman. Gillis with Cote and Eagles. The checking specialist, Marois right defense, Rochefort on the left. And from the stalemate of the faceoff, two-a-side scrum for it, and it is Zezel handing back to Crossman in the final minute and 3 seconds of play in regulation time. Howe sails it in. Final minute of play as it's handled by Rochefort and dumped high off the glass. Knocking at it is Gillis, a turnaround attempt by Kerr, and then Crossman with a backhander that's off a Nordique skate and cleared back down. Lindbergh is still in the cage and taps this one to Mark Howe at the far circle of the Flyers zone. 42 seconds to go. Crossman leads it ahead center ice to Kerr. Floats one on the right wing for Sinisato that's knocked loose, but a diving play by Zezel frees it to the left corner. Nordiques tried to clear. It's off Cote. Crossman with a diving play taps it to the deep slot, but then it is gotten by Cote, lost to Prop, moving right around in front, and he goes down on the lean of Rochefort, and the Flyers fans upset as they feel that Prop was taken down. 18 seconds to go as the Nordiques clear back to the Flyer end. On with it, Crossman, hurrying it up the wing to Brian Prop, buried by a Nordique check toward the right corner of the Quebec zone. It's cleared back out by Hunter with 7 seconds to go. Lindbergh has vacated the goal, so there's 6 attackers on, but they can get no farther than center ice as the Nordiques let a weak toss go as the horn sounds to end the game. The final score, as Richard Sevigny appropriately is being mobbed by his blue-clad Quebec Nordiques teammates. It is the Quebec Nordiques, perfect in 5 games, with 2.
The winner of the Flyers t-shirt
and the Philadelphia Flyers on the goal very early in the game by Murray Craven at 5:14. 1. Total shots in the game, 43 Philadelphia, 14 to Quebec to Lou Nolan in tonight's 3 stars.
Period for Quebec 2, game total 14. For the Flyers, 14, game total 43. This evening's 3-star selection is made by Chris Donahue of the Wilmington News Journal. Star number 3 from Quebec, Mark Kumpel. Star number 2 from the Flyers, Rich Sutter. And tonight's first star from Quebec, goalkeeper Richard Sevigny.
Appropriately, Sevigny named the star of the game in the Adams division in games outside its division. In 12 outings, 11-0-1. Quebec goes on the year 5-0-0, beating Philadelphia by a score of 2-1. Chief and his post-game guest coming up after this.